Hi, I'm Maris. At my sister's wedding, she had me and my son clean tables, like we were part of the staff. I smiled through it, even when they laughed, even when they called me the cousin from out of state, as if I'd never been part of this family. But what hurt more wasn't the chores. It was watching my 13-year-old son realize, maybe for the first time, that even kindness can be weaponized. Then, right when I thought I'd swallowed my last bit of pride, he stood up, took the mic, and everything changed. What did he say that made the whole room go silent? There was a time when a simple envelope arriving in the mail didn't stop me cold. That afternoon, I stood over the kitchen counter, sorting through grocery ads and medical bills, when I noticed the gold-trimmed envelope with the calligraphy lettering, "No return address." But the minute I saw Branwen, my stomach tensed. I knew it was Callista's. The paper was too expensive, the handwriting too curated for it to be from anyone else. Still, I opened it carefully. Inside was an ivory card with embossed lettering, "The Branwen McAllister Wedding." At the top, it read, "You are cordially invited to the celebration of the union of Callista Branwen and Jeffrey McAllister." Underneath, "To the family of Verlene Branwen. No Mary's, no Elian, no name at all." I flipped it over, twice. Searched for an RSVP card with our names. Nothing. It was the first time in 7 years I'd received anything from her that wasn't through our mother. And it still felt like an invitation to someone else. I stood there longer than I should have, that familiar ache rising in my throat. It's funny how a lack of ink can say more than a paragraph ever could. Elian came through the door moments later, tossing his backpack on the couch like he always did. "Mom, you got mail?" I quickly slid the card under a stack of papers. "Just a wedding thing." "Whose?" he asked, already moving toward the fridge. "Your Aunt Callista's." I watched his face. He paused, then brightened just a bit. "We're going?" I hesitated. "Do you want to?" He closed the fridge door with his shoulder, holding a can of soda. "I mean, I haven't seen Grandma in a while. Or anyone." And just like that, my decision wasn't mine anymore. 2 weeks later, we packed a weekend bag, and I drove us the 4 hours from Greenville to Charleston. Elian dozed off halfway through the trip. I had too much circling in my head to sleep. Boone Hall Plantation, that was the location. Classic, southern, photogenic. The kind of place that always felt like it belonged to someone else. By the time we pulled into the gravel lot, the sun was sliding behind the oaks, casting long, symmetrical shadows. The plantation house loomed like something out of a family history book we were never invited to write in. At the welcome table, a girl in a sleek black dress held a clipboard. She looked up with a professional smile. "Name?" "Maris Godwin, and my son, Elian." Her smile faltered for just a second. "Oh, one moment." She walked off, weaving through people in pastel dresses and champagne-colored suits. My stomach twisted. Elian tugged at his sleeve, trying to straighten the collar I'd ironed that morning. "Do we not have seats?" he whispered. The girl returned with a tighter smile and led us toward the guest chart. She pointed to a name card halfway down the display. Our names were there, technically. Under the heading, Janitorial Volunteer, Godwin, M. and Guest. My breath hitched. I blinked to make sure I read that right. Elian leaned closer, his jaw tightening. "Oh, sorry," the planner said quickly. "That must be a print mix-up. We've had a few odd labels. I'm sure it wasn't intentional." But I scanned the rest of the chart. Not a single other label was wrong. The girl guided us to our table, at the far edge of the garden, near the sound booth. As we sat, Elian stayed quiet. He didn't ask questions, didn't complain, just folded his napkin slowly and placed it in his lap like he was trying not to exist. I looked around at the rest of the tables, decorated with personalized menus and gold-edged cards. Ours had plastic place settings and a folded paper program that listed the evening's timeline, but not our names. "We're only here for one night," I whispered to myself. "Don't make it about you." But the sting didn't fade. It sat there, beneath my ribs, pulsing with every laugh I didn't feel welcome to join. And then I saw where they placed my son. The reception hall was breathtaking. Vaulted ceilings, white drapery cascading from chandeliers, and the kind of floral arrangements that only exist in magazines or the weddings of women like my sister. As we stepped in, I instinctively slowed down, scanning for our names among the rows of tables adorned with golden cards and embossed menus. I spotted my name, tucked at the back near a service entrance. And then I looked for Elian's. His name wasn't beside mine. A few steps away stood a table with a paper tent labeled Young Guests. Crayons, juice boxes, and activity sheets covered the cloth. And right in the center of it was a small card, Elian Godwin. My stomach dropped. He stood quietly beside me, his hands in his pockets, trying not to look disappointed. A little girl in pigtails was already scribbling next to his assigned seat. I flagged down a young woman with a headset. "Excuse me, there must be a mix-up. My son's 13. She smiled the way staff are trained to smile when they're delivering something impolite in a polite tone. "Oh, I see. Callista asked for him to be placed there. She said he was still in middle school. Most of our family teens are sitting with their parents or at the junior adult table. But I can check if there's room." I shook my head. "It's fine." Elian didn't say a word. He simply walked over, pulled out the too small chair, and sat. He didn't touch the crayons. He just stared at his folded napkin like it held the answers to something bigger than this moment. I knelt beside him. "You want to move to my table?" He forced a smile. "It's okay, Mom." But his eyes didn't meet mine. Back at my table, I tried to focus on anything else. Napkin folds, water condensation on my glass, anything but the sight of my son sitting among kids who still needed help cutting their food. It was subtle. It was calculated. An usher passed by with a tray of wristbands. "These are for guest access," he explained. "Different bands for different sections." He handed me a silver one. I noticed other family members slipping on gold bands. Some had their names engraved. Mine was plain. I approached one of the attendants near the ballroom. "Excuse me, my son is sitting just over there, and I wanted to walk him toward the photo room. It's in the family wing?" He looked at my wrist. "Silver bands are for reception access only. Family wing is gold." No apology, no softness, just protocol. I bit the inside of my cheek and smiled. "Of course." Back at the reception corner, I guided Elian away from the kids' table. "Want to stretch your legs?" He nodded. We walked to the outer edge of the garden, where no one seemed to be paying attention. The laughter from the main hall drifted through the air, punctuated by camera flashes and the clinking of glasses. On a small side table sat gift bags. I picked up the one labeled Maris. It was light. I opened it. Empty, except for a paper coupon for a local spa. The bag next to it, marked for a cousin, bulged with monogrammed items, embroidered napkins, a keychain, a handwritten note. It wasn't an oversight. It was consistent. Planned. Elian reached into his own bag, found a coloring book, and handed it to a younger kid nearby. He didn't look angry, just tired. I took a deep breath, fighting the heat rising in my throat. "Don't react. You promised you'd be gracious." I thought about my father. He would have said something, probably too much. But he wasn't here, hadn't been for years. And this wasn't his battle to fight. It was mine, quiet, careful, calculated. As I tucked the empty gift bag under the table, I glanced up and froze. Callista was making her entrance. She stood at the top of the grand staircase, dressed like the cover of a bridal magazine, soaking in every ounce of attention. People turned, phones lifted, laughter rose again, this time louder, richer, more celebratory. No one noticed the woman in the corner or the boy still sitting at the children's table. No one ever does. By the time the sun dipped below the treetops, casting long shadows across the lawn, a soft chime rang through the reception hall, calling guests back to their seats. The coordinator announced it was time for the Life Journey slideshow, Callista's curated legacy, projected onto a 15-foot screen for all to admire. I stayed seated, though part of me wanted to slip outside and find a quiet patch of grass. Elian sat beside me, quietly sipping from his water glass. He glanced over as the lights dimmed, then rested his arm lightly against mine. I kept my hand on his shoulder. The screen lit up with images of Callista as a baby in a frilly bonnet, then a toddler blowing out birthday candles. The room filled with warm chuckles and murmurs of nostalgia. The sound of glasses clinking, the rustle of taffeta skirts. People were leaning in, soaking up the fairy tale. And then the years began to tick by. Family vacations, school awards, Christmas mornings. I saw them all, except I wasn't in any of them. Not really. In some, I remembered exactly where I'd stood when the photo was taken. I remembered holding the camera. I remembered the smell of sunscreen, the sound of wrapping paper tearing, the way Callista had squealed when she unwrapped that scooter at 11 years old. But in every photo where I should have been, I wasn't. Either the image was cropped, or someone's elbow conveniently blocked my face. Once, a graphic overlay with "Happy Holidays" in sparkly letters landed right where I'd been sitting on the couch. Elian leaned forward, his brows subtly drawn. He didn't say a word, but I knew he saw it too. Then came prom. There she was, glowing, flawless, posed on our front porch in a pale blue gown. The photo was beautifully lit. I'd taken that one. I remembered pinning her hair back just right. I'd driven her to the fitting, stayed up the night before steaming the fabric. I'd held her earrings in my palm while she picked out her shoes. And yet, I wasn't in the frame, not even a reflection in the glass door behind her. The applause was generous. Her friends cheered. Her groom leaned in and kissed her temple. A slideshow designed to honor her life had rewritten mine out of it. I quietly stood and slipped out of the hall before the cake-cutting segment. Outside, the sky was bruising with early evening clouds. String lights began to flicker on as I wandered toward a side area near the garden entrance, where a glass case had been set up. "Harlan's Keepsakes," the sign read. It was a tribute to our father. His bronze star was pinned in the center. His cufflinks were arranged in a neat row. There were handwritten notes from guests and old photos from his army days. My eyes scanned the bottom shelf, where the letters were. Years ago, I'd written him a letter after we'd had a fight. I was 16. I'd poured myself into those pages. My hopes, my guilt, my confusion about everything going on in our house. He never spoke of it again, but I'd seen it in his desk drawer once, folded and worn at the edges. It wasn't there. A middle-aged woman in a navy pantsuit was arranging the display. I cleared my throat. "Hi, sorry. Was there a letter here? From a daughter? I think it had a green ribbon." She looked up, unsure. "You must be Maris." That told me enough. She hesitated, then said, "Callista made final edits. She said that letter didn't really fit the tone." I stood there a moment, hands still at my sides. The evening breeze caught the hem of my dress. Something inside me tried to well up, but I pressed it down before it could rise. I thanked the woman and walked back toward the reception hall. Elian was waiting outside, holding 2 drinks. "I thought you'd want ginger ale." I took it from him. Our fingers touched briefly. His eyes scanned mine, looking for some kind of signal. I forced a small smile. "Thanks." We sat on the low brick wall near the walkway, watching the lanterns sway. Guests were laughing inside, unaware or pretending not to know. "When someone erases you this thoroughly," I said quietly, more to myself than to him, "you stop asking to be seen. You start documenting instead." He didn't ask what I meant. He just handed me a napkin from his pocket, the kind with the wedding date and Callista's name in gold cursive. I folded it in half, placed it in my bag like a record. I unlocked my phone and opened the voice memo app. Not to say anything, just to start listening. The music shifted, soft piano turning cinematic, like we were suddenly watching a trailer for a movie no one invited me to star in. Chairs creaked as guests twisted in their seats. Camera flashes fired one after another. Then she appeared. Callista stood at the top of the staircase like she'd been sculpted for that moment. Her veil fell in soft folds down her back, and her dress, lace, ivory, timeless, was one I recognized immediately. Not just any gown. It was our mother's wedding dress, the one she kept preserved in a cedar chest, wrapped in tissue and memories. The one she once said would be mine. Callista descended the stairs slowly, each step measured, as though she were stepping into history. Applause rolled through the hall. It was thunder, deafening. I didn't move. I wasn't jealous. That would have been too small for what I felt. It was something closer to betrayal, cloaked in satin and stitched in silence. Something no one else seemed to notice, or chose not to. I felt a tap on my arm. My mother stood beside me, hands clasped like she was attending mass. "Doesn't she look beautiful?" she whispered. "She earned that dress." I didn't respond. I bit down on the inside of my cheek so hard it ached. I didn't trust my mouth to stay quiet if I opened it. A memory surfaced without permission. Me, 17, standing barefoot in the living room while Mom lifted the lid of that cedar chest and unfolded the gown with care. "One day," she'd said, smoothing the lace over her forearm, "this'll be yours, but only if you take care of it like I did." I never asked for it again. After I left, I figured it went back to the attic, forgotten or given away. But now, seeing it hugging Callista's figure, customized and altered, made it clear. It hadn't been forgotten. It had been reassigned. After the speeches and second round of toasts, I stepped outside. I didn't announce my exit. I just needed to breathe. The garden path was empty, lit by low lanterns and dusky light. I followed the walkway until I reached the far hedge, where roses bloomed without trying. I stood there for a while, unsure what I was doing, whether I was calming down or letting the quiet remind me who I used to be. I didn't hear her approach until she spoke. "You always had a way of disappearing when things got difficult," my mother said. Her voice wasn't harsh. It was polite. That made it worse. "I just needed a moment." She stepped closer. "Maris, don't start something tonight. This is Callista's day. Let it be hers." I turned to face her. "Did you know? About the dress? About the photos? About all of it?" She looked away like she'd been asked to calculate a tip. "Some things are better left behind. You need to stop holding on to the past. Be the bigger person." There it was. Again. That phrase. Be the bigger person. The command women get when they're expected to absorb more than they should. When silence is equated to virtue. I wondered how many times she had said that to herself about me. "I was the one who helped her pick that dress," I said. "The first time she tried it on, she cried because the sleeves were itchy. You weren't there. I was." "That doesn't matter now," she replied, soft but firm. "Don't make people uncomfortable tonight. This family needs peace." "This family needs honesty," I said, but it didn't land. Her expression had already shut the door. She walked away without another word. I stood alone by the roses. My hands trembled, not from rage, but from holding back everything that wanted to erupt. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I opened the voice memo, the one I'd started earlier. Play. I didn't listen for long, just enough to hear her voice. My sister's, not my mother's. The sound of them laughing about how Maris won't do anything anyway. They weren't wrong. I hadn't done anything, not yet. "Mom?" I turned. Elian was holding 2 dessert cups, 1 chocolate, 1 lemon. He held them out without comment, like it was the most natural thing in the world to find me hiding near the rose bushes. "Thanks," I said. We sat on the bench together, quiet except for the occasional wind stirring the leaves. "That dress wasn't just lace," I told him. "It was acknowledgement." He didn't pretend to understand fully. He just looked down at his shoes for a second, then back at me. "You're still not ready, are you?" he asked softly. I nodded, but my eyes were already burning. The transition from sunset cocktails to the gift acknowledgments happened seamlessly. Too seamlessly. One moment, people were still sipping champagne and nibbling on shrimp skewers. The next, they were being directed back to their seats by the MC's chirpy voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, our bride would now like to share a few words of gratitude for the people who made this day so special." I returned to my table with Elian close behind. I hadn't eaten much, but I held a half-empty flute of sparkling water, just to keep my hands busy. Callista stood on the platform beneath the floral arch, aglow in candlelight and the center of every camera. She cleared her throat gently, then began listing names. She thanked old teachers, sorority sisters, former bosses. She smiled at distant cousins and shared a personal memory about a friend who flew in from Oregon. The crowd lapped it up like gospel. Then she held up a small velvet box. "This," she said, lifting the necklace gently from within, "was my mother's, and I'm so grateful to Aunt Vera for returning this precious family heirloom to me. It means more than I can put into words." Applause broke out. I sat still. I knew that necklace. I'd found it weeks ago while clearing out the cedar chest in our basement. Yes, our basement. The one she never once helped sort through after Mom's fall. I'd wrapped it carefully, tucked a handwritten card beside it. The note read, "May this remind you who we come from, and that not all things forgotten are lost." I'd sent it through our mother, trusting her to deliver it privately before the ceremony. There had been no reply, no text, no acknowledgement. Until now. Only it wasn't my name being honored. It was Vera's, our great aunt, who hadn't seen Callista since she was 12. I stared straight ahead, heart slowing like it knew something my body was still catching up to. Callista beamed as she clasped the necklace around her neck, oblivious to the quiet disfigurement she'd just created in front of everyone. The applause faded. Dessert was served. Conversations picked back up. But the air around me stayed still, like waiting for something to crack. Later, on my way back from the restroom, I turned the corner near the coat room and nearly bumped into Aunt Maura. "Oh, Maris," she said, startled. Her lipstick had smudged slightly, and she clutched her shawl as if for protection. "Did you see the gift segment?" I asked calmly. She nodded, but her eyes darted away. "I did. I sent that necklace. And the card. I wrote that note myself." Maura swallowed hard, the way people do when they're deciding how much truth they're willing to live with. "I know you did," she finally said. "I saw it. Verlene. She took out the note. Said it was too sentimental. Told Callista to credit Vera instead. Said it would play better in front of the crowd." My mouth didn't move. My whole face stayed still. "Why didn't you say anything?" She looked down at the floor tiles, then back at me with a softness that somehow made everything worse. "I'm on the deed for the main property," she whispered. "Your mother made that very clear." So that was the exchange rate. Silence for land. Complicity for comfort. I didn't speak. I didn't nod. I just walked away. The lounge area behind the main dining tent was dim, mostly empty. A few groomsmen were checking their phones. I found Callista by the mirror, touching up her lipstick with the kind of confidence that made me wonder if she even remembered we shared a childhood. She caught my reflection and offered a look somewhere between bored and amused. "Need something?" I just came to say one thing," I replied, tone level, eyes calm. "If you keep rewriting history, don't be shocked when the truth decides to speak for itself." She let out a short breath that was more scoff than laugh. "It's not that deep, Maris. Everyone's just trying to get through the day." I nodded once. "Some of us have been doing that for years." I left her there, staring at herself. Outside, the wind had picked up. I walked slowly, letting the sounds of the reception muffle behind me. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice memo app again, and this time I hit record. Dinner service had started, and the noise inside the reception hall had softened to the usual clatter of silverware and polite laughter. From where we sat, in the far corner again, I watched servers glide between tables with practiced grace, placing fillets and garnished asparagus in front of guests who'd never had to earn respect in rooms like this. Elian and I were almost done with our plates, eating in silence, when a young planner approached us. Her hair was slicked into a tight bun, headset snug over one ear. She bent slightly, voice low. "Hi, Ms. Godwin. I'm sorry to bother you. Callista mentioned you used to do event work. She wondered if you might help with a small spill near the back corner. Just a quick towel-over situation." It was dressed like a favor, polite and optional, but her eyes didn't match the words. They were trained, cautious, like she already expected me to nod. I stood. "Of course." Elian looked up from his plate. I offered a smile like it was nothing, but my hands curled at my sides as I followed her toward the linen closet. She handed me a towel and motioned discreetly toward a table leg where a half glass of wine had dribbled. As I bent to wipe the stain, I felt it. Eyes. A woman at the next table nudged her husband and tilted her chin in my direction. Another glanced over, then away, then back again. Their faces didn't hold disgust. That would have been too honest. No, this was polite curiosity laced with something smug. When I returned to my table, I hadn't sat down 10 seconds before another planner came over. Different face, same tone. "Hi again, sorry. One of the dessert tables near the fountain shifted during setup. Would you mind helping realign the platters? Just straighten a few things?" Elian's fork froze midair. "I'll take care of it," I said, rising again. This time, it wasn't subtle. A man in a blue suit with thinning hair called out, "Thanks, sweetheart. You've got a good eye for the details." I adjusted a tray of petite fours, my jaw clenched so tight I felt it in my ears. When I turned around, Elian wasn't at the table anymore. He was 10 feet away, carefully carrying a small tray of desserts, likely trying to help, to prove something, to bridge a gap I never should have let him feel. Then he tripped. His foot caught the edge of a draped extension cord someone had lazily tossed along the floor. The tray tilted, and a dozen miniature cakes launched into the air like poorly rehearsed fireworks. One landed on a woman's shawl, another splattered against a champagne flute, cracking the glass. The room gasped. Then came the laughter. It started small, but it spread, like wildfire through dry brush. And above it all, crystal clear, came Callista's voice. "Guess he takes after his mother." That did it. I crossed the floor without thinking. Elian was kneeling, already trying to pick up pieces of broken porcelain with his bare hands. His face was flushed, his shoulders hunched. I knelt beside him, placing a hand gently over his. "It's okay, let it be." Then I stood. The room was still watching, waiting for more. I turned to Callista, who sat with her arms folded, an untouched glass of wine in front of her. "Next time you want something cleaned up," I said evenly, loud enough for the room to hear, "I suggest you start with your character." There was a pause. Not dramatic, not staged, just a small beat where the room didn't quite know how to recover. The band fumbled back into a soft instrumental. Someone coughed. Callista opened her mouth, but I was already walking back toward our table. Elian followed, eyes downcast. He didn't sit immediately, just stood beside me until I placed a hand on his back. Slowly, he lowered himself into his seat. "You didn't have to say that," he whispered. I looked at him. Yes, I did. And I'm just getting started. I reached into my purse, slid out my phone, and checked the screen. Still recording. From before dessert. Every word, every laugh, every insult. The lights in the reception hall dimmed, but not in the warm, romantic way you'd expect from a wedding magazine spread or a Hallmark movie. No, this dimming was deliberate, controlled, a subtle manipulation of mood and moment. A hush fell over the room like a velvet curtain being drawn before a play. Forks clinked lightly as they were set down. Champagne glasses tilted, glimmering in the softened light. Anticipation hummed like static, my back pressed against the rigid wooden chair, my breath shallowing without permission. I knew what was coming. Callista emerged onto the stage beneath a halo of white hydrangeas and string lights, her entrance perfectly timed. Her gown shimmered, catching the spotlight with a kind of cruel elegance. She moved with the confidence of someone who had rehearsed this exact moment, someone who knew the power of a pause, of a glance, of a curated smile. She adjusted the microphone slowly, like a seasoned speaker, then smiled. The corners of her mouth curled just enough. Too perfect, too polished. It didn't feel like a smile, it felt like a performance. "Thank you all for being here," she began, voice smooth as satin. "Tonight isn't just a celebration of love. It's a celebration of family, of those who show up, who stay, who don't disappear when things get messy." A ripple of knowing chuckles passed through the crowd. My stomach turned to stone. She continued, "Family has always been the backbone of who I am. The people who shaped me, supported me, who stood by me, even in the hardest seasons." I held my breath. One by one, she listed names. Uncle James, who mentored her through law school. Aunt Caroline, for taking over the seating chart. Cousin Rachel, who flew in from Denver. The room nodded and smiled. Applause broke out here and there. Toasts were raised. She never said my name, not even a glance in my direction. Then came the knife, wrapped in ribbon. "And to those who didn't run away when things got hard, thank you. You've taught me what loyalty looks like, what real love looks like." Laughter again. Lighter this time, the kind that cuts deeper because it hides behind civility. I felt my jaw tighten, my nails press against my palm. The words weren't direct. They didn't have to be. The omission was the message. The subtext, weaponized. Beside me, Elian turned his head. I felt his gaze before I saw it. His face said everything. Confusion, hurt, and slowly, recognition. He didn't need to ask what was happening. He was watching it unfold with his own eyes. I stared straight ahead. "You never even asked why I left. You never tried to understand. You just wrote me out, like I was a draft you didn't like." My hand slid to my purse. My fingers brushed the edge of my phone, still recording everything since the moment dinner had been served. I hadn't planned it, not really. But something in me had known. Call it intuition. Or self-preservation. The applause faded. Callista left the mic with a satisfied gleam in her eyes. Rudy, the MC, took the stage with his clipboard. He tapped the mic, grinning. "All right, folks, now it's time for some special acknowledgments. Let's give a big hand to the hearts behind this beautiful night." People clapped. Chairs scraped. Guests began standing for photos and applause. "Let's bring up our incredible support system," Rudy said, scanning the names. "Family, friends, our wedding circle of trust." A parade of names followed. Groups shifted toward the front. The spotlight turned toward the carefully selected few. "And a special thanks," Rudy added, squinting at his list, "to our cousin from out of state, Mar. Marie, thanks for joining us." Heads turned. Marie? Not Maris. Not sister. Cousin. It landed like a slap. Quick, cold, public. For a second, the world went silent in my ears. Just the dull thrum of white noise, like standing underwater. It wasn't even the most cruel moment of the night, but it was the one that said the quiet part out loud. "You are not part of this story." Elian's head jerked toward me, his jaw clenched, but it was his eyes that said it all. There was no mistaking the look now. Disbelief. Not just at what was said, but at the fact that no one stopped it. No one corrected it. No one stood for me. Until now. I stood. Quietly. I walked around the table, resting my hand lightly on the back of Elian's chair. I bent toward him, voice low. "We don't have to sit here and let them tell the story wrong." He looked up at me, the soft fire behind his eyes glowing brighter. He nodded once. "Then let's tell it ourselves." He stood, But he didn't walk toward the exit. He walked toward the stage. The room quieted again. Puzzled glances rippled through the crowd. Rudy blinked as Elian stepped forward, uninvited but unfazed. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "Before we move on, I'd like to say a few words." Callista turned, visibly startled. Elian reached into his coat pocket and held up the envelope I had handed him hours before. The one with the original wedding venue invoice. The one with my name on the contract. The one showing who had paid the deposit months ago when Callista had said she was still figuring things out. "I think it's time we corrected a few details," he said, then turned to the crowd. "You all heard a lot about loyalty tonight, about showing up. But the person who helped this wedding happen, who paid the deposit, who handled the vendor nightmares, who stayed up late emailing caterers, isn't even listed in the program." A murmur ran through the guests. He looked at me, then held out his hand. "Maris, come tell your side." I stepped forward. Slowly, deliberately. My heels clicked against the tile like punctuation marks, and this time I wasn't disappearing. Elian stepped onto the stage so calmly it took a full 10 seconds for anyone to notice he didn't belong up there. The band stopped mid-measure. The murmur of guests shifted from casual to confused. A few people chuckled, assuming it was part of some quirky wedding surprise. It wasn't. He reached for the mic with the steadiness of someone twice his age. His face was calm, but I saw the slight tremble in his hand as he wrapped his fingers around the handle. I stood frozen by our table, my breath trapped somewhere between my chest and my throat. "I know this wasn't planned," he began, his voice cracking just a little before he found his rhythm. "But I wanted to thank someone who hasn't been mentioned tonight." People leaned forward. Some blinked slowly, waiting for a punchline. "I want to thank my mom," he said, "for staying quiet for so long, for putting her head down even when it hurt. But she shouldn't have had to." My body stopped being mine for a moment. My knees threatened to give out. Elian pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and held it up to the mic. A grainy recording crackled to life. At first, it was hard to make out, muffled by purse fabric and crowd noise. Then it sharpened. Callista's voice, casual and sharp. "I'm not worried. She won't say anything. She never does. That's the thing about Maris. You don't even have to lie to her. She'll do the silencing herself." A male voice I didn't recognize. "You sure?" She looked like she was about to snap at the lounge. Then came Verlene, my mother's voice, clear, cold, and cutting. "Maris was always the one who needed to stay in the background. She just doesn't know how to stay quiet with grace." The room gasped. A fork clattered loudly against a plate. Someone whispered a profanity near the back. Callista's laugh followed. "She's not even family anymore. She's a placeholder. We gave her a seat. That should have been enough." The audio ended. Elian paused. He didn't hand the mic back. He held it tight, scanning the room of relatives and strangers, and people who had cheered Callista through every version of the truth she'd ever painted. "Grandma said she was proud of one daughter," Elian continued, "and it wasn't my mom. But it should have been, because she's the one who packed our things when no one helped. She's the one who paid bills while the rest of you played savior. She's the one who showed me what strength looks like." You could hear nothing but breathing and the buzz of electricity in the speakers. I didn't think, I just walked. I climbed the stage beside my son. He looked up, eyes wide for a moment, as if unsure whether he'd gone too far. I took the mic from him gently, and for once, I didn't hesitate. "Let me be very clear," I said. "You didn't just try to rewrite my story. You tried to erase it." I turned my eyes toward my mother. She didn't look angry. She looked unprepared. "Shame," I said, "is not in silence. It's in cruelty, and I've swallowed enough of both for a lifetime." Then to the room. "Let this be the last time someone's quiet is mistaken for guilt. Let this be the last time you reward someone for keeping the peace while bleeding underneath it." I didn't drop the mic. I set it on the table beside me with care. It made a soft thunk against the wood, a sound that, somehow, felt louder than Callista's entire toast. There was no applause, No music cue, just a room paralyzed by its own reflection. A woman 2 tables down stood and gathered her purse. Her husband followed. A cousin I barely recognized averted his eyes. Callista was still seated, but Jeff, her groom, was leaning over and whispering rapidly into her ear. She didn't speak. Her fingers trembled over her wine glass. Verlene sat stiffly, hands clasped like she was bracing for a storm that had already landed. The lights remained dim. The band didn't start again. I stepped down from the stage, finding Elian near the edge. He reached for my hand like it was instinct, like it had always been his compass. We didn't run. We walked out, not as guests, not as family, but as the only people who'd finally told the truth out loud. When we got back to Greenville, the first thing I did was open every window in the house. The air was stale from our weekend away, but more than that, I needed the sound of wind, real wind, not artificial applause or the clinking of champagne glasses. I unpacked slowly. No rush. I watered the spider plant in the kitchen that had somehow survived despite my negligence, folded laundry in silence, refilled Elian's cereal bin like it was any other Sunday. Only it wasn't. The silence in the house felt new, not cold like it used to, just quiet and mine. Elian sat at the piano in the next room, coaxing out a familiar melody. His fingers moved with more confidence than I'd ever seen. He didn't ask what would happen next. Neither did I. By Tuesday, the calls started. Not from the ones who mattered. They never called. But I heard through a neighbor that Callista's honeymoon was postponed. Her groom needed space, someone said. Her PR contract with a skincare brand was quietly canceled. Apparently, someone had leaked the audio. I never asked who. It wasn't me. But truth has a way of finding its own mouth. Verlene left a single voicemail. Her voice was clipped, rehearsed. "You embarrassed this family. I hope you're proud." I didn't reply. I just deleted it. For the first time, I didn't let her words find a home inside me. Later that night, while sorting through old receipts in the kitchen drawer, I found something I'd forgotten about. A draft email I'd once typed up during a therapy session years ago. It was meant for my mother. I'd never sent it. The message was long, rambling, part plea, part confession. I'd read it over so many times back then, trying to decide whether it sounded pathetic or brave. This time, I didn't overthink it. I read it out loud, quietly, then hovered over the send button and clicked delete. Closure, it turns out, doesn't always need witnesses. A week later, I sat at the back of Elian's school auditorium. He'd made the final round in a statewide debate contest. The topic, when speaking up isn't a choice, it's a responsibility. He stood at that microphone like he had at the wedding, calm, steady, present. When it was over, the audience clapped. Teachers nodded. Judges smiled. I didn't say, "I'm proud of you." I leaned close to him and whispered, "You made space for truth." He understood. 2 days later, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Aunt Maura standing there in her Sunday blouse, holding a potted orchid and a plain white envelope. "I won't stay," she said. "I just wanted to leave this." Inside the envelope was a note. "Some debts aren't financial. I hope this counts as interest." I didn't call her, but I didn't throw the card away either. I planted the orchid by the window. It bloomed quietly. And that's how things started to grow again. Not with fireworks or forgiveness, but with decisions made softly over time. The following weekend, Elian and I walked through Cleveland Park just as the sun dipped behind the pines. Our shadows stretched long across the gravel path. He tossed a pebble into the creek, then glanced at me. "You good, Mom?" "Better than I've been," I said. "Not done, but better." We kept walking. They told me silence was dignity, but I've learned something else. Dignity is knowing when to speak and when to walk away. And when you do walk away, you don't go empty. You carry the truth with you, even if no one claps when you tell it. We weren't welcomed back into their version of family, but we've started building our own, brick by honest brick. Sometimes the people who raised you teach you more about survival than about love. And sometimes the greatest act of strength isn't shouting to be heard, it's choosing to speak when silence has cost you everything. What I've learned is this: no one has the right to write you out of your own story. And if they try, it's not weakness to walk away, it's wisdom. So let me ask you, have you ever been made to feel invisible in your own family? Did someone ever try to tell your story without asking who you really are? If this story touched something deep inside you, leave a comment with the number 1 or share where you're watching from. If it didn't sit right with you, I'd love to hear why. We're here to listen. We're here to grow. And if you believe stories like this matter, stories about dignity, truth, and rebuilding from silence, then please subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss the next one, because more voices are coming and they deserve to be heard. Hi there, I'm Monica. And let me tell you something. Family isn't always what it seems. Thanksgiving was supposed to be a time for gratitude, for togetherness. But in my family, it was just another stage for manipulation and deceit. My sister, Elise, she always had to be the star, the one in control. She made sure the world saw her as successful, as powerful. And me, she made sure I was nothing. She spread lies about me, said I was bankrupt, ruined, that I was drowning while she thrived. But what she didn't know? While she was bragging about buying her dream home, I had already signed the papers. The house was mine. The real question is, why? Why would I do something like that? Why would I play her game, but on my terms? And most importantly, how did she react when she found out? Trust me, you won't believe how far she went to keep her perfect illusion intact. But here's the thing about illusions. Eventually, they shatter. So tell me, have you ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you most? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to hear how this all played out, keep watching. Thanksgiving had always been a spectacle at Elise's house. Lavish decorations, an extravagant dining setup, and an air of curated perfection. I knew what to expect, yet every year I still found myself bracing for the storm beneath the polished surface. The estate stood proudly in an upscale Charleston suburb, illuminated by a cascade of golden lights, wrapped around pristine white columns. From the driveway, the faint echoes of laughter and clinking glasses drifted through the crisp evening air. I parked a little farther away, taking a moment before stepping out. My reflection in the side mirror was composed, but the tension behind my eyes betrayed me. Inside, the house exuded grandeur: vaulted ceilings, an opulent chandelier, and sleek modern furniture, each piece curated to reflect Elise's idea of success. The room buzzed with conversation, but the energy was unmistakable, controlled, monitored, like every movement was meant to contribute to an illusion of effortless perfection. Elise, as expected, stood at the center of it all. Dressed in a tailored burgundy dress, she laughed effortlessly, her manicured fingers wrapped around a crystal champagne flute. She commanded attention without demanding it, a skill she had mastered long before I ever understood the weight of it. Monica, her voice carried across the room, feigned warmth coating every syllable. I was starting to wonder if you were coming. I offered a polite smile, handing my coat to a waiting server. Traffic was heavier than I expected. Her eyes flickered, a micro-expression of skepticism before she beamed again. Of course, the holiday rush. Dylan appeared beside me, subtly placing a glass of wine in my hand. Thought you might need this, he murmured. I took a sip, scanning the room. My parents were in their usual spots. Dad engaged in polite conversation with distant relatives, Mom looking more exhausted than usual, but keeping up appearances. And then there was Brandon. He stood near the fireplace, posture stiff, eyes distant. The once confident architect now carried an unfamiliar weariness. He was listening to someone, but his mind was elsewhere. Elise moved toward him, slipping her hand possessively around his arm. His jaw tensed. I turned to Dylan. How bad is it? He exhaled slowly. Worse than you think. Dinner was served on a table stretching nearly the length of the dining hall. Candles flickered in silver holders, and a centerpiece of autumn-colored flowers sat between intricately folded napkins. The atmosphere was carefully arranged, but the tension was unavoidable. Elise thrived in moments like these. It was never enough to be admired. She needed control, dominance, the satisfaction of knowing she dictated the narrative. Halfway through dinner, she turned toward me with a practiced smile. Monica, I was just telling everyone how incredible your work ethic is. It's inspiring, really, how you've managed to build yourself up. The room quieted slightly. Compliments from Elise were never without an edge. But I suppose, she continued, dabbing her napkin against her lips, some people are just naturally inclined for supporting roles. A soft ripple of laughter moved through the table. I set my fork down carefully. Across from me, Brandon glanced away. Dylan's fingers curled subtly around his wineglass, the only visible sign of his annoyance. I knew the game. Engage, and I'd be playing into her hands. Stay silent, and she'd consider it a victory. I reached for my glass, forcing a casual tone. It's always fascinating to hear your perspective, Elise. A flicker of irritation passed through her eyes, but before she could respond, Dylan leaned toward me and whispered, "She's not just coming after you." Brandon's in deeper than he realizes. I stilled, processing his words. Then Elise straightened, drawing the room's attention with practiced ease. "Before we move on to dessert, I have a little announcement." Brandon's posture stiffened beside her. "We are thrilled to share that we're about to close on a stunning vacation property in the Hamptons, our dream home." Applause followed. Toasts were raised, but I couldn't hear any of it. The name of the property. I had seen it before. Elise didn't own that house. It had been purchased, under a different name. My grip tightened around my wineglass, my voice barely audible. "That's impossible." Brandon flinches at my words. "What do you mean, impossible?" he asks, his voice low but edged with unease. I glance at him, but before I can respond, Elise lets out a perfectly practiced laugh, tilting her head back slightly. "Oh, Monica," she says, shaking her head, her expression a mix of amusement and condescension. "You always have such a flair for dramatics." She lifts her champagne flute and takes a slow sip, eyes gleaming under the chandelier's golden glow. The murmur of conversations continues around us, but something in the air has shifted. Even those who pretend to be engaged in other discussions have subtly turned their attention toward us. Brandon's gaze is sharp, searching my face for an explanation. I set my wineglass down carefully. "The Hamptons house you just announced," I say evenly, keeping my voice low but firm. "You don't own it." A flicker of something, irritation, maybe panic, passes through her eyes before she blinks it away. She exhales softly, as if indulging a foolish child. "Monica, darling, I know you struggle with being happy for other people, but this is sad, even for you." She places a manicured hand over her chest, her expression shifting into carefully curated concern. "You've always had this need to undermine me. It's exhausting, really." Dylan, sitting beside me, leans in just enough that only I can hear him. "Watch her closely," he murmurs. "She deflects when she's cornered." "I already know that. I've seen her do it my entire life." Brandon shifts, his fingers tightening around the edge of the dining table. "Elise," he says, his voice controlled but noticeably tense. "Answer the question." She turns to him, her expression softening as she switches tactics. "Oh, sweetheart," she coos, touching his arm. "You know I've been handling the paperwork. It's all in motion. These things take time." Brandon's jaw clenches. I glance at Dylan, who is already watching Elise the way a hunter watches its prey. His mind is working, processing every word, every tick of her expression. I take a slow breath, steadying myself. "That's interesting," I say, keeping my tone casual. "Because I happen to know the house was sold 3 weeks ago, and not to you." Silence. Brandon looks at me sharply. What? Elise's smile is tight now. You're mistaken. Dylan crosses one ankle over the other, swirling the wine in his glass lazily. I'd bet good money she isn't, he says, raising an eyebrow. She turns her glare on him now. What exactly are you implying? I think Monica's implying you're lying, Dylan says smoothly. The room is suddenly too quiet. Brandon exhales slowly, pushing his plate away as he leans back in his chair. Then explain something to me, Elise, he says, his voice steady but colder than I've ever heard it. She stiffens. He looks around as if making sure everyone else is listening. If we're about to buy a vacation home, why are we struggling to pay our current mortgage? The weight of his words crashes over the table like a wave. Someone sets their fork down. A cousin coughs awkwardly. Elise recovers quickly, letting out another laugh. Brandon, she says sweetly, we are not struggling. You know investments take time to balance out. Everything is accounted for. Brandon doesn't blink. Then show me the numbers. I watch her, searching for the moment her mask cracks. It happens in the briefest flicker, the way her fingers tighten around her glass, the way she quickly shifts her gaze away from his. Then she leans back and exhales dramatically. Honestly, I don't understand why I'm constantly being interrogated. Do I ask you to justify every decision you make? Number. She presses a hand to her temple, like she's suddenly exhausted by all of this. This is ridiculous. Brandon is staring at her like he's seeing her for the first time. She knows she's losing control. She turns back to me instead, her eyes narrowing. Honestly, Monica, why do you always find a way to be jealous? She snaps. Maybe if you worked as hard as I do, you'd have something of your own instead of worrying about my success. I inhale sharply, every muscle in my body going taut. Dylan shifts beside me, ready to step in. But then, for the first time all evening, Brandon speaks up again. I have another question, he says quietly. Elise turns back to him, eyes flashing with impatience. He folds his arms. If everything is fine, why did I find a late payment notice in the mail last week? Elise goes still. Brandon's voice is eerily calm. You told me you paid the mortgage. A single beat of silence. Then Elise forces out a soft laugh. I did. Brandon stares at her. Lying won't work this time. Dylan leans closer to me. That's the look of a man who's starting to wake up. I grip the stem of my glass tighter. Elise adjusts her posture, taking control again. This is ridiculous, she says dismissively, standing up. I'm done entertaining these absurd accusations. We're supposed to be enjoying Thanksgiving. She turns to the guests, flashing her effortless smile. I think we could all use some dessert. Slowly, conversations resume, though the tension remains thick. Brandon says nothing as she walks away, his fingers tapping against the table in thought. I turn to Dylan. I need to talk to you. He nods, setting his glass down. We step into a quieter part of the house. The low hum of conversation from the other room is distant, muffled. She doesn't own the Hamptons house, I say, keeping my voice low. Someone else does. Dylan studies me carefully. Do you know who? I hesitate for only a second. I have a theory. Before he can respond, the guests start moving toward the door, signaling that the night is ending. I step back into the main area just as Brandon appears in front of me, his face unreadable. He waits until the last of the guests have left before speaking. Tell me the truth, Monica. I meet his gaze. What do you know about Elise that I don't? The weight of the question lingers between us. I exhale sharply, shaking my head. I know that she's about to lose everything. Brandon runs a hand through his hair, his face pale. Then I need to know everything, he says firmly. I glance around the nearly empty street outside Elise's house. The night air is crisp, the holiday lights casting a warm glow on the pavement, but there's nothing comforting about this moment. Brandon's entire world is shifting beneath his feet, and I wonder if he's truly ready to hear what I have to say. I hesitate, but he catches my wrist before I can turn away. Monica, please, he pleads, voice tight. I can't keep pretending I don't see it. I need the truth. Something in his expression makes my chest tighten. Come on, I say, nodding toward my car. Let's talk somewhere Elise can't listen in. The drive is silent, the weight of unspoken words stretching between us. I take him to a small bar just outside downtown Charleston. It's quiet, dimly lit, the kind of place where people come to be forgotten. I choose a corner booth, waiting until the bartender moves away before I finally speak. You don't know who she really is, I say, stirring the condensation on my glass with my finger. Or maybe you do, and you just don't want to admit it. Brandon exhales sharply, rubbing his temple. I know Elise isn't perfect. She has flaws, but she's my wife, Monica. I shake my head. She's a liar, a fraud, and this isn't the first time. He tenses. What do you mean? I set my drink down, my fingers pressing into the table's wooden surface. It started years ago. I was 18, about to start college. I had a scholarship, but it didn't cover everything. My dad co-signed a loan to cover the rest. Brandon listens intently, his expression unreadable. I take a slow breath, forcing myself to keep my voice steady. One morning, I went to pay my tuition. The payment bounced. Brandon frowns. That doesn't make sense. No, I agree. It didn't. At least not until I saw the withdrawal records. Someone had taken the money out weeks before. His eyes darken. Elise? I nod. She forged our father's signature and drained the account. When I confronted her, she laughed, said I should be grateful, because apparently she needed it more. Brandon shakes his head, eyes flashing with disbelief. And your parents? They didn't want to believe it. My dad was furious at first. But Elise, she always knows how to manipulate people. She cried, played the victim, said it was a misunderstanding. I let out a humorless chuckle. She made it sound like I was the selfish one for being angry about it. Brandon leans back, silent. I push forward. That was the first time she stole, but it wasn't the last. The words hang between us. Brandon swallows hard, his hands clenched into fists. And you never told me. I tilt my head. Would you have believed me? His shoulders drop, the realization hitting him all at once. I watch as his mind pieces together memories, patterns, all the things he's ignored for years. The way Elise always seemed to have more money than she should, the expensive vacations, the way she dismissed any concerns about their finances with a smile and a kiss. Brandon exhales shakily. I found collection notices in her office weeks ago, he admits. I asked her about them. She told me it was just a mistake, that she'd taken care of it. He laughs bitterly. And like an idiot, I believed her. I lean forward. Elise is drowning, Brandon. The Hamptons house was supposed to be her way out. If she could convince everyone, especially you, that she was closing on a multi-million-dollar property, she could use that leverage to secure more credit, more loans, keep the illusion going just a little longer. Brandon grips his glass, his knuckles white. And now? Now? I shake my head. Now she's out of time. Brandon stares at the table, his mind racing. I can see the war in his eyes, the battle between denial and the unavoidable truth. Finally, he leans forward, voice steady but determined. If she's lied about this, he says slowly, what else has she been hiding from me? I meet his gaze, holding it. Are you ready to find out? Brandon nods. Tell me what we need to do. The determination in his voice is new. It's raw, unsteady, but it's there. For the first time, he's willing to look past the illusion Elise has spent years weaving around him. I don't say anything at first, just study his face. There's still hesitation in his eyes, the last remnants of denial clinging to him. But he's ready. We start with the truth, I say. No more excuses, no more trusting her word. He exhales sharply, nods again, then glances at his watch. It's late. I need to go home, he says. I need to see it for myself. I don't argue. He needs to do this alone. As he pushes away from the table and heads for the door, Dylan, who has been silent up until now, leans back in his chair. "If he finds what I think he'll find," he murmurs, "this marriage is already over." I don't disagree. Brandon arrives home long past midnight. The Dawson mansion is dark, quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos spinning inside his mind. He slips inside carefully, barely making a sound as he moves through the grand foyer, past the winding staircase, and toward Elise's home office. She's upstairs, asleep, or at least pretending to be. The door to her office is slightly ajar. He hesitates before pushing it open, flicking on the desk lamp. The room is immaculate, as it always is, but the closer he looks, the more cracks he sees. Papers stacked too neatly, drawers locked when they shouldn't be. He sits down at her desk, heart pounding in his ears, and pulls open the first drawer. It's filled with neatly filed receipts, but something about them feels off. Every transaction is excessive: designer clothes, luxury travel, extravagant dining. He flips through them, fingers tightening around the edges. None of these are things he approved. None of them are things he even knew about. He moves to the next drawer. Locked. Brandon swears under his breath, scanning the desk until he finds the small silver key tucked inside a porcelain dish. His fingers shake as he slides it into the lock, turns it. The drawer pops open with a quiet click. Inside, neatly organized, is a stack of documents. The first thing he sees is a credit card statement. His name is on it. So is a balance of over $50,000. Brandon blinks, flipping to the next page. Another credit card. Another maxed out balance. Loan applications, property records, bank transfers he never approved. His breathing grows shallow as he moves through them. He feels like he's drowning, sinking deeper with each new piece of evidence. Then, his hand freezes over a sealed envelope. Unlike the others, this one isn't filed away. It's shoved into the back of the drawer, almost like an afterthought. He pulls it out, breaks the seal, and unfolds the letter. His stomach drops. Final notice of eviction. The words blur in front of him. His mouth goes dry. The mansion, their home, isn't just at risk. It's already gone. Elise had kept it hidden. All this time, while she smiled, laughed, threw parties, while she played the role of the perfect wife, she had known. She had known and said nothing. Brandon doesn't realize how much time has passed until he hears soft footsteps behind him. He looks up. Elise stands at the top of the staircase, her silk robe draped loosely around her. Her hair is slightly disheveled, but there's no sign of sleep in her eyes. She was awake. She knew he was in here. For the first time, she looks nervous. Brandon rises slowly, still gripping the eviction notice in his hand. "How long were you planning to keep this from me?" Elise freezes. "Brandon," she whispers, voice careful. "Let me explain." Brandon's grip tightens on the paper. "I think you've explained enough." Elise blinks, recovering quickly. She tilts her head, forcing a soft, incredulous laugh as she steps forward. "Brandon, you're overreacting," she says smoothly, reaching for his arm. "You're exhausted. You've had too much to drink." He jerks away. "Don't," he warns, voice sharp. Her expression flickers, just for a second. Then she sighs, her features rearranging into something softer, more controlled. "Baby, let's sit down," she coaxes. "Talk about this rationally." He exhales slowly, staring at her. The woman in front of him, the carefully curated version of Elise, has manipulated him for years, always knowing the right words, the right tone, the perfect amount of affection to pull him back in. Not this time. Brandon holds up the eviction notice between them. "This isn't an overreaction," he says. "This is proof." Elise crosses her arms. "It's not what you think." Brandon laughs coldly. "It's exactly what I think." He steps back, running a hand through his hair. "How long?" he asks, voice tight. "How long have you known we were losing the house?" Elise's silence is answer enough. Brandon shakes his head, jaw clenching. You told me everything was fine. You told me you had it under control. He gestures around the grand house. The chandeliers, the imported furniture, the expensive artwork. Was any of this ever real? Elise stiffens. Of course it was. Brandon scoffs. Then why am I finding out like this? He lifts the foreclosure notice again. Why did I have to dig through your files to see the truth? Elise lets out a breath, frustration creeping into her voice. Because I knew how you'd react, she snaps. Just like this, panicking, accusing me, acting like I'm some kind of criminal. His fingers tighten into fists. You stole from me, he says. You forged my name on loans, maxed out credit cards, lied to my face about our finances. What exactly would you call it? Her lips press together, her patience thinning. Brandon, listen to me, she says carefully. I had a plan. The Hamptons house. It was an investment. If we had secured the right buyers, flipped it at the right time, we could have fixed everything. His stomach turns. You were gambling. She rolls her eyes. It's called business. Brandon exhales harshly, shaking his head. You don't get it, do you? It's over, Elise. We don't own a Hamptons house. We don't even own this house anymore. For the first time, true panic flashes in her eyes. Brandon steps forward, his voice steady. Tell me the truth. How much do we actually owe? Elise hesitates, fingers twitching against her robe. Brandon's gut twists. Jesus, he mutters, stepping away. She inhales sharply. Brandon, please. No, he cuts in. Not this time. She reaches for him again, but he moves out of reach. I can fix this, she insists. He shakes his head. I don't believe you. Elise's face darkens. The softness vanishes, replaced by something colder, sharper. You're nothing without me, she says flatly. You think people respect you? They don't. They respect me. Everything we have, everything you are, is because of me. Brandon lets out a slow, measured breath. Then he turns, walking toward the staircase. Where are you going? She demands. He doesn't stop. Brandon! He reaches their bedroom, grabs a duffel bag from the closet, and starts packing. Footsteps storm behind him. What the hell are you doing? He zips the bag closed. Leaving! Elise's eyes widen, genuine fear creeping into her voice. You don't mean that! He lifts the bag over his shoulder. Yes, I do. She stares at him, her breath coming in short, shallow bursts. Brandon, she pleads, we can fix this. You can't fix this, he says quietly. Not this time. Elise takes a step forward, desperation slipping through the cracks of her perfect facade. You'll regret this. Brandon exhales sharply, shaking his head. No, he says. For the first time, I don't think I will. In the dim morning light, Brandon pulls his car into an empty parking lot and takes out his phone. His hands are shaking as he dials. Monica answers on the second ring. Brandon? His throat tightens. I need your help. She doesn't hesitate. Tell me everything. Brandon inhales, forcing the words out. I want a divorce. Silence. Then Monica exhales sharply. You need to get out before she burns everything to the ground. Brandon stares at the horizon, the weight of his decision settling deep in his bones. He knows she's right. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Elise stands by the window, clutching her phone. Her fingers tremble as she dials a number. When the call connects, she whispers urgently, I need more time. You promised me time. A cold voice on the other end of the call replies, Time's up, Elise. For the first time in a long while, Elise doesn't have a response. She grips the phone tighter, pressing it to her ear as if she can physically hold back the consequences barreling toward her. I just need a little longer, she says, her voice measured, controlled. A low chuckle hums through the receiver. That's what you said last time. She swallows, forcing herself to keep calm. You'll get your money. No, Elise. I'll get my money when I take everything from you. The call ends. Elise stares at her reflection in the darkened window, her own face barely recognizable beneath the growing panic. Her world is slipping, and for the first time, she doesn't know how to stop it. Brandon exhales as he steps into his new apartment, a one-bedroom rental in the heart of Charleston. It's clean, modern, but painfully empty. A week ago, he was living in a mansion, oblivious to the financial disaster Elise had orchestrated. Now he's starting over, with nothing but a half-filled suitcase and a stack of legal documents waiting on the kitchen counter. The divorce papers. He runs a hand through his hair before picking them up. Monica and Dylan made sure everything was airtight. No loopholes, no way for Elise to manipulate her way out of this. She would contest it, of course. She would fight tooth and nail. But this time, she wouldn't win. His phone buzzes. A text from Monica. It's done. She's being served today. Brandon exhales sharply, gripping the papers. This is it. Elise is in the middle of a spa appointment when the server finds her. She lounges in a plush robe, champagne in hand, feigning composure as the woman in a crisp black suit hands over the envelope. Mrs. Dawson, the server says smoothly. You've been served. The world tilts. Elise takes the envelope, but doesn't open it. She doesn't need to. She already knows what it is. Divorce. It was inevitable, but she thought she had more time. The server gives her a curt nod and walks away. The room is suddenly too quiet. The other women in the spa, once envious of her lifestyle, now look at her with a mixture of curiosity and thinly veiled amusement. Elise clenches her jaw. She won't let them see her break. Instead, she calmly stands, slides her sunglasses over her eyes, and walks out as if nothing happened. Monica leans back in her office chair, watching Dylan sift through paperwork. She's going to fight it, Dylan mutters, flipping through the financial reports. She always does. She can try, Monica says, reaching for her coffee. But she won't win. Dylan smirks. You sound confident. I am. Because for once, Elise isn't the one holding all the cards. Monica's phone buzzes, a blocked number. She hesitates before answering. A disguised voice filters through. You're digging into something you shouldn't be. Monica's grip tightens on the phone. Excuse me? A beat of silence. Then, drop it, or you'll regret it. The line goes dead. Monica stares at her screen, heartbeat steady but sharp. She looks up at Dylan, who's watching her closely. Well, she says slowly, that's new. Dylan raises an eyebrow. Threats? Seems that way. She leans forward, considering. Someone doesn't want her to expose Elise. That only makes her more determined. Brandon's tension doesn't ease, even hours after Elise has been served. A part of him expected relief, but all he feels is unease. The threats started 2 days ago. Anonymous texts at first, vague warnings to walk away. Then they escalated. A note under his door. A voicemail with nothing but heavy breathing. Now, sitting alone in his apartment, the silence feels oppressive. His phone rings. He expects Monica. Instead, it's Elise. He lets it go to voicemail. Moments later, a text appears. You'll regret this. Brandon exhales slowly. No, he thinks, I won't. The office door slams open. Monica doesn't even flinch as Elise storms in, her heels clicking against the tile. She slams the divorce papers onto the desk, eyes blazing. You think you've won? Elise hisses. This is far from over. Monica doesn't react. She simply leans back in her chair, fingers laced together, and smiles. We'll see about that. Elise steps out of the office, dialing a number she never thought she'd have to call again. I need your help. The line crackles for a moment, before a low, measured voice responds. You always do. She swallows, gripping her phone tightly as she steps into her car. This is different, Victor. A dry chuckle. It always is. She clenches her jaw. I don't have time for games. I need to meet. Silence. Then, same place. The call ends. Elise exhales, shoving her phone into her bag. She's out of options. The private club sits on the edge of Charleston. tucked away from prying eyes. It isn't the kind of place one stumbles into. It's the kind of place where power is exchanged over whiskey and whispered threats. Elise strides through the dimly lit lounge, ignoring the weight of the stairs following her. She doesn't belong here, not anymore. But that doesn't mean she can't pretend. Victor Langford sits in the farthest booth, a glass of scotch resting in front of him. He hasn't changed. His tailored suit is crisp, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed back, but the same calculating sharpness lingers in his dark eyes. As she slides into the booth, he watches her like a cat watching a wounded bird. "You're late," he says. "I wasn't aware we were keeping appointments." Victor smiles, but there's no warmth in it. "I hear things, Elise. Rumors, whispers. Something about a husband walking out? A house lost?" He leans back, swirling his drink. "Messy." She forces a tight smile. "Nothing I can't handle," Victor hums. "Is that why you're here?" She doesn't bother with pleasantries. "I need more time." Victor raises an eyebrow. "Time. The money's coming," she lies. "A new investment deal, big. If you give me a little breathing room, I can make sure you get more than what I owe." Victor chuckles, shaking his head. "Still spinning stories." "It's not a story." His amusement fades. "You think I don't know you, Elise?" His voice lowers, sharp as a blade. "You're drowning, and now you're desperate." Elise's nails dig into her palm beneath the table. "I just need 7 days." Victor considers her, then leans forward, elbows on the table. "You have 7 days," he murmurs. "Then I take what's mine another way." Elise forces herself to hold his gaze. "That won't be necessary." Victor smirks. "We'll see." Monica is reviewing paperwork when her phone vibrates, a blocked number. She hesitates, then answers. "You need to watch your back," a disguised voice warns. Monica sits up straighter. "Excuse me? You think you know who you're dealing with, but you don't. Elise isn't just desperate, she's reckless." Monica grips the phone. "Who is this?" A pause. Then, "Ask her about Victor Langford." The line goes dead. Monica stares at her phone, a slow unease creeping into her bones. Victor Langford. The name is unfamiliar, but the weight behind it is unmistakable. Dylan looks up from his laptop, noticing her expression. "What is it?" Monica exhales sharply. "I think Elise is in deeper than we thought." Brandon stands in the kitchen of his apartment, staring at the bank statement on his laptop. His stomach twists. Money has been transferred from their joint account. Large amounts. The recipient? An untraceable account. Elise. He clenches his jaw. She wasn't just reckless, she was dangerous. Elise grips her glass of wine, staring out over the Charleston skyline. 7 days. She always found a way. And this time would be no different. Monica reads the anonymous message again. "Elise is in deeper than you think, and if you don't stop her, someone else will." The words pulse in her mind like a steady drumbeat. She had known her sister was reckless, manipulative, and selfish, but this was something else. "Who sent this?" Dylan asks, leaning over her desk to read the message again. "I don't know," Monica murmurs, setting her phone down. "But whoever it is, they know something we don't." Dylan sighs, rubbing the back of his neck. "You think this has anything to do with that name you mentioned yesterday? Victor Langford?" Monica's stomach knots. The moment she'd heard that name, something about it had felt off. Now, with this message, that unease has solidified into something undeniable. "I think we need to find out." The next few hours are a blur of financial records and research. Monica and Dylan sit in her office, sifting through Elise's offshore accounts, tracking wire transfers that lead to suspicious companies, shell corporations with no real business dealings, just a constant flow of money disappearing into the void. Dylan exhales sharply. "This isn't just fraud. This is criminal." Monica nods, her throat dry. Elise wasn't just hiding assets. She was moving money through illegal channels. Dylan straightens, his eyes narrowing. which means she's not just in trouble with the IRS, she's in trouble with people who don't forgive debts. Monica swallows the tension creeping up her spine. And that's when her phone rings. Brandon's voice is clipped, urgent. We need to meet. Now. 15 minutes later, Monica finds him pacing in front of a coffee shop, his expression hard. She barely has time to say hello before he thrusts a piece of paper at her. It's a copy of their joint bank account transactions. And the withdrawals? They're staggering. She drained our accounts, Brandon says, voice tight. Transferred everything to an offshore account linked to a private lender. Monica looks up at him. Victor Langford? His expression darkens. You know about him? I'm starting to. Brandon exhales, raking a hand through his hair. I went to my lawyer this morning. I'm filing for an emergency financial freeze. If she thinks she's going to keep taking from me, she's got another thing coming. Monica nods. Good, that's the smartest thing you can do. Place Elise stands in front of Brandon's temporary apartment, her hair and makeup flawless despite the chaos unraveling beneath the surface. She knocks twice before he opens the door. I need to talk to you, she says, her voice carefully controlled. Brandon leans against the doorframe, arms crossed. If this is about the money. This isn't about the money. Her voice softens. It's about us. He exhales, shaking his head. There is no us, Elise. You made sure of that. She steps closer, just enough that he can smell her perfume. Familiar, once comforting. Brandon, please. For a split second, he falters. Not because he believes her, but because this is the Elise he fell for. The one who knew how to play the part perfectly. I don't want to fight, she whispers. I need you to understand that I never meant for things to get this bad. Brandon studies her, then sighs. If you're really sorry, sign the divorce papers, walk away. Elise flinches, but recovers quickly. You know I can't do that. Brandon's jaw tightens. Then we have nothing to talk about. She watches him, something shifting behind her eyes. Then, just as quickly as she appeared, she turns and walks away. Monica is going over case files when the door to her office bursts open. Elise stands in the doorway, eyes wide, breathing uneven. Monica blinks. It's the first time she's ever seen her sister look afraid. Elise steps forward, voice barely above a whisper. I need your help. Monica slowly closes her laptop. Excuse me? I know you hate me, Elise says, her tone raw. I know you want to see me fall, but… She exhales sharply, shaking her head. I can't fix this alone. Monica narrows her eyes. Fix what? Elise hesitates, her mask cracking just slightly. I owe money, Monica. More than you can imagine. Monica leans forward. To who? Elise's lips part, but no sound comes out. Monica watches her closely. Victor Langford? Elise jerks back as if struck. Monica exhales through her nose. That's what I thought. Silence stretches between them. Then, finally, Elise whispers, They're going to kill me, Monica. Monica meets her sister's gaze, unflinching. Then I suggest you start telling me the truth. Victor watches from a distance as Elise leaves Monica's office. He takes a slow sip of his drink, the ice clinking against the glass, before pulling out his phone. She's out of time, he mutters. The response on the other end is immediate. We'll handle it. Victor smirks and ends the call, tapping his fingers against the glass. Elise always thought she was untouchable. She was about to learn otherwise. I watch Elise pace the office, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the wooden desk as if she could drum away the inevitable. She had asked for my help, begged for it. But even now, I could see the gears in her head turning, searching for an angle, a way to manipulate me into fixing this for her. I wasn't falling for it. You want me to believe you're the victim? I ask, arms crossed. That you just fell into $2 million of debt? Elise exhales sharply. I thought I could flip it, she says, voice strained. I had deals lined up. Real estate investments? Stocks? I just needed time. But then things started falling apart and I shake my head. You gambled with money that wasn't yours. She swallows, shifting uncomfortably. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, Elise, I snap. You just never pick the right one. She flinches, and for a brief moment, I see something real beneath the layers of arrogance, fear. This isn't just about me anymore, she says quietly. Victor, his people, they don't care about contracts or court cases. If they don't get their money, they'll take something else. A chill creeps up my spine. You mean they'll kill you? She nods once. Good. A small, vicious part of me thinks she deserves it, that this is karma finally catching up to her. But then I think of Brandon, how much she's already cost him. Why are you here, Elise? I ask, my voice lower now. She hesitates, because if I go down, I'm not going alone. Brandon sits across from his lawyer, flipping through the final draft of the financial restrictions. So once this is filed, he says, she can't touch a cent? His lawyer nods. Correct. Given the evidence of reckless spending and mismanagement, we can argue for full control over the remaining assets. Brandon exhales. It's over, he mutters. His lawyer doesn't reply. Because they both know, it's never that simple. Elise grips the edge of my desk, her knuckles turning white. I took out a loan in Brandon's name. The words hit me like a gunshot. My stomach drops. You what? She swallows. It was months ago. I needed collateral, and his credit was still... You forged his signature? I demand, my voice rising. She doesn't deny it. I inhale sharply, trying to steady the rage bubbling up inside me. Do you have any idea what you've done? I say, my voice low and dangerous. She looks away. Of course she does, and she doesn't care. Brandon is halfway through a bottle of whiskey when the knock comes at his door. He ignores it at first, but then he hears the rustle of paper sliding under the frame. Frowning, he gets up, bending to pick up the envelope. No return address, just his name. He rips it open and pulls out the contents. A contract, a loan contract. His eyes skim the details, his heartbeat quickening. $500,000. Under his name, with his signature. Only, he never signed it. His phone buzzes. Unknown number. He answers. A voice, smooth and cold. Evening, Brandon. Brandon grips the paper, his pulse hammering. Who is this? Doesn't matter. What does matter is that we own you now. Pay up, or we take it another way. Brandon exhales sharply, his grip tightening on the papers. She just signed my death sentence. Monica's phone rings. She doesn't recognize the number, but something in her gut tells her to answer. The voice on the other end is smooth, deliberate. You're smart, smarter than your sister. Maybe you can fix this before it gets ugly. Monica's grip tightens around the phone. Who is this? A pause. Then, you already know. Elise sits in the back of a black SUV, staring out at the darkened streets as the car glides through the industrial district. She doesn't know why she agreed to this meeting. Maybe desperation, maybe fear. Or maybe, deep down, she still believes she can talk her way out of anything. The SUV slows to a stop outside a dimly lit warehouse. The driver says nothing. She swallows and steps out. Inside, the air smells of oil and rust. A single hanging bulb flickers overhead. Victor leans against a stack of wooden crates, arms crossed. Elise, he greets, his voice casual. I was wondering when you'd show. She forces a smile, but her hands tremble at her sides. I told you I just need a little more time. Victor tilts his head, as if considering. Then he snaps his fingers. Two men step out of the shadows. Elise stiffens. Victor steps closer, lowering his voice. Time's up! Monica stares at the blank screen of her phone, heart pounding. Brandon paces the room. Who was it? She exhales. Victor! Brandon's expression darkens. What did he want? She doesn't answer. She doesn't need to, they both know. Dylan leans forward, hands steepled. We need to move now. Brandon nods. How do we clear my name? Monica thinks for a moment, then says, We find the money. Because despite everything, despite the threats, the fraud, the betrayals, Elise wasn't broke. She was lying. Again. Victor watches Elise with mild amusement. You're out of favors, he tells her. No more extensions, no more negotiations. She forces herself to stand taller. I'll get you the money. He lifts a brow. Oh? And where exactly is it? She hesitates. Victor smirks. That's what I thought. He steps closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You have 48 hours, he says. After that, he gestures toward the two men flanking him. The message is clear. Elise barely makes it out of the warehouse before her legs give out. She grips the car door for support, sucking in a shaky breath. 48 hours. She could fix this. She had to. Monica and Dylan sift through financial statements, legal documents, offshore records, everything they have. And then they find it. A flagged transaction, a hidden account. Dylan exhales. She had the money this whole time. Monica's jaw tightens. Of course she did. Brandon stares at the numbers, his expression unreadable. Then why didn't she use it? Monica meets his gaze. Because she still thinks she can win. But not this time. She closes the folder. We need to get into her house. Elise barely registers the drive home. Her thoughts are spinning too fast, tangled between escape routes and last-ditch plans. She needs a drink. The mansion is silent when she enters. She heads straight for the liquor cabinet, pouring herself a generous glass of whiskey. She takes a deep breath. She'll figure this out. She always does. But then, something feels off. She turns, scanning the dimly lit room. Her office door is slightly ajar. Her stomach twists. Slowly, she steps forward, reaching for the handle. The safe is open. Her heart pounds. She rushes forward, hands shaking as she rifles through the contents. The offshore account documents. Gone. Her breath catches. And then, a single word, hissed through clenched teeth. Monica! Monica sits in her car, flipping through the stolen documents. The numbers don't lie. Elise had more than enough money to pay Victor and walk away. But instead, she gambled, convinced she could manipulate her way out. Monica exhales, gripping the steering wheel. This ends now. She dials a number. Dylan picks up after one ring. Tell me you have something. Monica's voice is steady. We have her. Now let's end this. Brandon storms into Monica's office just after midnight. His hair is disheveled, his jaw clenched. He tosses a crumpled piece of paper onto her desk. Another threat from Victor. Monica doesn't flinch. She expected this. What the hell did you do? Brandon demands. Dylan, leaning against the bookshelf, crosses his arms. She got us leverage. Brandon's eyes snap to Monica. You broke into her house? Monica doesn't deny it. I did what had to be done. Brandon rakes a hand through his hair, pacing. You know this could backfire, right? Monica leans forward. So could doing nothing. He stops. She pushes the documents toward him. She had it, Brandon. The money. She could have paid Victor weeks ago, but she didn't. Brandon swallows hard, his hands balling into fists. She let this happen. Monica nods. And now we make her fix it. Elise sits alone in the mansion, clutching her phone. She has spent hours making calls, begging, pleading. No one will help her. Her so-called friends have stopped answering. Her financial advisors have quietly distanced themselves. Even her own family is against her. And then, her phone pings. A single message from an unknown number. You have 24 hours to fix this. Her blood runs cold. She doesn't know who sent it, but she has a feeling she knows exactly where it came from. Monica watches the clock. Victor's deadline is closing in. She doesn't know what he'll do if Elise doesn't pay, but she has a feeling it won't be pretty. Dylan shifts beside her. Do you think she'll come? Monica doesn't answer, because she already knows. Elise doesn't have a choice. The doors to Monica's office burst open. Elise storms in, face pale, eyes burning with desperation. She slams the offshore documents onto the desk. "What do you want?" she spits. Monica folds her arms, meeting her sister's gaze. "Your choice, Elise." Her voice is calm, final. "Either pay him, or you won't just lose your money. You'll lose everything." Elise exhales sharply, trying to maintain control. "Fine," she says, her voice measured. "I'll pay him. But I want something in return." I don't react. I just watch her, waiting. She tilts her chin up, her desperation masked by forced arrogance. "You disappear. Walk away from my life, my business, everything. You want me to pay Victor? Then you stay out of it. Forever." I almost laugh. Almost. Instead, I shake my head, keeping my voice steady. "Elise, you don't get to negotiate anymore. Pay him, or deal with the consequences." Her nostrils flare. "You think you've won?" I lean back in my chair. "I don't think, Elise. I know." She glares, but I can see the truth settling in. She's out of moves. Or at least, that's what I think. Elise checks into a luxury hotel that night. The mansion was no longer safe. The walls were closing in, but she still had a card to play. She dials Victor. "I have your money," she says smoothly, sipping from a glass of wine as if she still has control. "But I need a guarantee." A pause. Then his cold voice comes through the line. "What kind of guarantee?" She smirks. "Monica is a problem. Make sure she's out of the way." Victor chuckles. "You're ruthless. I'll give you that." "Is it a deal or not?" she snaps. Another pause. Then, "It's a deal, but if you're lying about the money—" "I'm not," she interrupts. "You'll have it soon." She hangs up, exhaling slowly. One way or another, she would come out on top. Brandon stands outside the hotel room door, his stomach twisting. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to care anymore. But something felt wrong. He was about to knock when he heard her voice inside. He freezes. "I want Monica out of my life permanently," Elise says, her voice low. Silence. Then a man's voice. "You're sure?" Brandon steps back, his pulse pounding. What the hell was she planning? I'm at my office when my phone buzzes. It's Brandon. "Pick up," he mutters under his breath. "Come on, Monica," I answer. "What's wrong?" "Elise!" His voice is clipped, urgent. "She's setting you up." I grip the phone. "Tell me everything." As he talks, my stomach tightens. I should have known. Elise never admits defeat. By morning, I have everything I need. Brandon had recorded the conversation. Every word. I send it straight to the authorities. It's over. Elise walks into her hotel room later that evening, feeling victorious. She hums to herself, tossing her purse onto the couch. And then, a knock at the door. She turns, frowning. She opens it. Two officers stand in the hallway. One of them holds up a badge. "Elise Dawson, you're under arrest for financial fraud, forgery, and conspiracy." She stares. Her entire world crumbles in an instant. "No," she whispers, stepping back. "This isn't happening." But it is, and there's nothing she can do to stop it. I watch from across the street as Elise is led out of the hotel in handcuffs. She's still dressed in her designer coat, her hair perfectly styled, except for the panic in her eyes, the slight tremble in her lips as she fights to keep up appearances. She looks around wildly, searching for someone, anyone, to step in and save her. No one does. I finally exhale. "It's over," I murmur, gripping my phone as the police push her into the squad car. Elise Dawson, queen of deception, is finally out of moves. The county jail is cold, sterile, and nothing like the luxury Elise is used to. The fluorescent lights buzz above as she's fingerprinted, photographed, and processed. She hasn't spoken since she was brought in. Not a single word. Not when they took her belongings. Not when they placed her in a holding cell. And not when they handed her a list of public defenders. Because none of her lawyers, The ones she had thrown thousands of dollars at would take her call. She presses her hands against her temples, breathing hard. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. Back at my office, I sit across from Brandon and Dylan. The weight in my chest should feel lighter, but it doesn't. She'll try to fight, Brandon says, his tone resigned but firm. She can't, Dylan replies, flipping through a file. We've closed every legal loophole, the fraud, the offshore accounts, the forged signatures. There's no way out. Brandon rubs a hand over his face, exhausted. What if she takes a deal? Dylan leans back. That depends on what she's willing to give up. I stare at the papers in front of me. Elise always found a way to survive. But this time, she's truly alone. Victor watches the news from the corner of a dimly lit bar. Elise's mugshot flashes across the screen, followed by a headline, "Local socialite arrested in massive financial fraud scandal." He takes a slow sip of his drink, then turns off the TV. "She's done," he mutters, tossing a few bills onto the counter before standing up. No point in wasting time on her anymore. Elise is pulled from her cell, led into a small, windowless interrogation room. She sits, wrists cuffed to the metal table. Minutes pass. Then an officer enters, dropping a thick folder in front of her. She doesn't look at it. The detective sits across from her, folding his hands. "We both know you're smart, Ms. Dawson, so let's not waste time." She stares at him, her jaw tight. He flips open the folder, revealing document after document. The forged signatures, the fraudulent wire transfers, the offshore accounts, and then the transcript. Her conversation with Victor, the one Brandon had recorded, the one where she ordered him to get rid of me. Her breath catches. "We have enough to bury you," the detective says, his voice calm. "So here's your choice." He leans forward. "You can cooperate and get a lighter sentence, or you can fight and lose everything." Elise finally looks down at the papers, her hands trembling. For the first time in her life, she has no escape. I step outside the police station, the cold morning air hitting me like a wave of exhaustion. Dylan walks beside me, hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. "You did it," he says, breaking the silence. I let out a slow breath. Did I? Because despite everything, despite Elise being behind bars, despite Brandon finally getting free, despite knowing she's facing years in prison, I don't feel victorious. I just feel tired. A week later, the courtroom is packed. Reporters line the benches, their cameras flashing as Elise is escorted inside. She's wearing a beige prison uniform, her once perfect hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. But it's her eyes that catch my attention. They're still calculating, still searching for a way out. She adjusts her cuffs, tilts her chin up. When the judge enters, she doesn't flinch. She's still playing the part of the untouchable Elise Dawson, still pretending she has control. The bailiff reads the charges. "Your Honor," Elise's lawyer begins, his voice steady, rehearsed. "My client pleads not guilty." Brandon scoffs beside me. Dylan shakes his head. I clench my fists. Of course she does. Of course she thinks she can spin this, twist reality into something that works in her favor. But this time, the evidence isn't something she can rewrite. The prosecution lays it out. The fraudulent loans, the offshore accounts, the forged signatures, the money she funneled into shell companies, the millions that disappeared under false names. They play the recording of her conversation with Victor, the moment she tried to sell me out. Her lawyer barely looks at her. Even he knows she's losing. When the judge finally speaks, the tension is suffocating. This court finds that the defendant is a significant flight risk due to undisclosed offshore accounts and fraudulent activity spanning multiple years. I watch as Elise's fingers tighten around the table's edge. No bail will be granted. The gavel slams. Elise's mask cracks for the first time. Brandon files the final paperwork for his divorce the next day. He signs the documents without hesitation. "I thought this would feel different," he admits, placing the pen down. "How do you feel?" I ask. He laughs, shaking his head. "Like I can finally breathe again." I nod, understanding. Because for the first time in years, so can I. The next time Elise and I meet, it's in the courtroom again. This time, there are no cameras, no press. Just a final, quiet sentencing hearing. She stands before the judge, her hands folded neatly, her expression blank. But I can see the anger simmering underneath, the desperation clawing at her. She still thinks she can win, still thinks she can play the victim. I was coerced, she says smoothly, her voice unwavering. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was threatened, manipulated. Victor, seated at the back of the courtroom, lets out a low chuckle. Your Honor, his lawyer says, standing, we have substantial evidence proving otherwise. The judge barely hesitates. The verdict is delivered in a tone as final as the closing of a door. Guilty on all counts. Minimum 10 years. No parole, no way out. As the guards lead her away, Elise finally turns to look at me. For the first time, she doesn't try to smile. Doesn't try to manipulate. Her lips part, her voice barely above a whisper. You were always supposed to be beneath me. I tilt my head, meeting her gaze. That was your first mistake. Elise disappears from view, escorted through the courthouse doors by 2 officers. I exhale deeply, feeling the weight of everything that has happened settle over me. So, what now? I murmur. Dylan stands beside me, hands in his pockets. Now? We move forward. Forward. The word should feel liberating. Instead, it just feels final. 2 weeks pass in a blur. Charleston moves on. The world continues spinning. But for those of us who lived through this mess, there's still unfinished business. Brandon finalizes the last of the divorce papers, officially severing the last legal tie between him and Elise. I never realized how heavy it all was until it was gone, he admits as we sit in my office, going over the final paperwork. I nod, knowing exactly what he means. Freedom isn't always a sudden feeling of relief. Sometimes it's just the slow realization that the weight you've been carrying for years has finally been lifted. Dylan, ever the perfectionist, ties up every legal loophole to make sure Elise never finds a way out. She'll appeal, he warns. I shake my head. She'll try. But this time, there's no one left to save her. Elise burned every bridge, and now she's alone. It's what she always feared the most. I meet Brandon one last time at a small cafe near the waterfront. He looks lighter, more like the man I used to know before Elise drained him. We sip our coffee in silence for a while before he finally speaks. I don't regret meeting her, he says. I raise an eyebrow. He lets out a soft laugh. I mean, I regret a lot of things, but if none of this had happened, I wouldn't have realized how much I deserved better. I nod. I think we both learned that. There's a moment, one where I wonder if this could have been different, if we had met at a different time, under different circumstances. But that's not how life works. I hope you find happiness, Monica, he says. I smile. You too, Brandon. And just like that, we go our separate ways. Later that evening, I sit alone in the same cafe, letting the warmth of my coffee chase away the chill of the night. For the first time in years, there's no war left to fight, no battle plan, no revenge to plot. Just possibilities. My phone buzzes on the table. Unknown number. I hesitate before answering. A smooth, confident voice comes through the line. Monica Reeves, I have a case for you. I frown. I think you have the wrong number. Number I don't. This is bigger than Elise. Are you interested? I set my cup down, heart pounding just a little faster. A part of me knows I should say no, that I should walk away from all of this. But another part, the part of me that spent years fighting to uncover the truth, leans in. Tell me more. The airport is crowded, filled with people heading in different directions, chasing different futures. I stand still in the middle of it all, staring at the ticket in my hand. One way to New York. One way to something new. One way away from everything I've ever known. I take a slow breath, feeling the weight of this moment settle deep in my chest. This isn't just a move. This is a rebirth. A month has passed since Elise's conviction. A month of closing chapters and opening doors I never thought I'd step through. Elise was sentenced to 10 years. No possibility of early release. No high-powered lawyers swooping in to save her. The judge saw through every manipulation, every attempt to twist the truth in her favor. For the first time in her life, she was held accountable. And for the first time in mine, I didn't have to be the one to pick up the pieces. Brandon is moving forward, reclaiming the life he lost in the years spent tangled in Elise's web. He texted me this morning. Brandon, heard you're leaving today. I just wanted to say, thank you for everything, and good luck. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Me. You don't need luck. You're free now. Go build something better. It felt like the right thing to say. Maybe because I wasn't just saying it to him. Maybe because I needed to hear it too. Dylan meets me at the airport, hands shoved deep in his pockets. I still think you're crazy, he says. I smirk. That's not news. He sighs, shaking his head. You could stay, build something here. I look past him, out the window where the planes come and go. I could stay. I could settle back into my old life, keep doing what I've always done. But something inside me has shifted. I built myself up once, I say. Now I'm doing it again. Dylan studies me for a long moment, then nods. Well, he says, handing me a coffee. At least New York has decent bagels. I laugh, shaking my head. He doesn't say goodbye. We both know this isn't really an ending. The final boarding call echoes through the terminal. I take one last look at the city that shaped me. The city where I learned how to fight, how to survive, how to win. I walk toward the gate, ticket in hand, heart steady. This time, I'm not running. This time, I'm chasing something bigger. As I step onto the plane, I exhale and whisper to myself. This time, I'm writing my own story. As I step onto this plane, leaving behind the past and embracing an unknown future, I realize something important. Life is about choices. We don't always get to choose where we come from, but we do get to choose where we go next. For years, I lived in the shadows of betrayal, manipulation, and deceit. I spent so much time trying to right the wrongs of others that I nearly lost myself in the process. But in the end, I learned the most valuable lesson of all. Sometimes walking away is the strongest thing you can do. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. You are not defined by the people who hurt you. You are not bound by the past. You are not trapped by the mistakes of others. And you are not obligated to keep fighting battles that only serve to drain you. Your peace, your happiness, your future. It all starts with a decision. A decision to break free, to rebuild, and to take control of your own story. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from something or someone that was holding you back? What did it teach you? And if you're standing at a crossroads right now, unsure of which way to go, what would your future self want you to choose? Drop a 1 in the comments if this story resonated with you. Or tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far our stories travel. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another story that just might change your perspective on life. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to write a better story for ourselves. Hello, my name is Lauren Dawson, and this is the story of how my family taught me that love was just another word for control. I grew up in a house that looked perfect from the outside, elegant, pristine, full of wealth. But inside, it was suffocating. It was a prison built on power, favoritism, and quiet betrayals. When I finally broke free, I thought I was done with them. But last Thanksgiving, I made a mistake. I came back. I walked through those cold mansion doors, sat at that long dining table, and listened as my father made his grand announcement. He wasn't celebrating my career, my success. No, all that mattered was my younger brother, Lucas, the golden child, the one they had spent a significant investment on. Something didn't sit right. So, I checked my bank account. And just like that, I learned the truth. My college fund, my future, had been drained. Taken, stolen. And do you know what they said when I confronted them? "You already have a good job, Lauren. Lucas needed this more than you did." That was the moment I realized. I was never part of this family. I was just another asset to be used. But they made one mistake. They thought I would stay silent. They thought I would accept it. Instead, I sent them something unexpected. When they opened what they thought was an engagement invite, they found something else. Legal papers. Because this time, I'm not playing by their rules. The Dawson estate loomed in front of me, its grand facade bathed in the soft glow of evening lights. Elegant, timeless, imposing, just like the people inside. My childhood home had always felt more like a monument than a place of warmth. And tonight, that feeling pressed against my chest like a stone. The driveway was lined with expensive cars, each one a symbol of the prestige my father, Robert Dawson, valued above all else. I knew what awaited me beyond those towering double doors: scrutiny, expectations, and the suffocating weight of being the daughter who never quite fit. Stepping inside, the familiar scent of polished wood and expensive perfume filled my senses. The chandeliers overhead cast a golden hue over the marble floors, but even their warmth couldn't chase away the chill running through me. "Lauren," my mother's voice rang out before I had a chance to breathe. Catherine Dawson stood near the grand staircase, her tailored dress pristine, her expression unreadable. "I was beginning to think you weren't coming." I forced a polite smile, stepping forward. Traffic was heavy. Her eyes flicked over me, pausing at my simple black dress. "Still working in that field?" The way she said it, architecture might as well have been a dead-end job. I bit back the urge to remind her that my firm had just secured a major contract. "Yeah, still working." A flicker of disapproval crossed her face before she smoothed it away, gesturing toward the dining room. "Everyone's waiting." I followed her through the hallway, past portraits of the Dawson lineage, paintings of men who had built fortunes, controlled industries, and dictated legacies. No women graced these walls. My mother existed in their world as an ornament, and I was the disappointment. The dining room was filled with laughter and conversation, but the moment I stepped inside, the energy shifted. Eyes glanced my way, some offering polite nods, others pretending not to notice me at all. At the head of the table sat Robert Dawson, my father. Powerful, calculated, utterly unreadable. Beside him, my younger brother, Lucas, exuded the effortless confidence of a man who had never known what it was like to be overlooked. "Lauren!" Lucas grinned, standing to embrace me. Unlike our father, he had a charm that masked the sharp edges beneath. "Glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, though the lie sat heavy on my tongue. As we took our seats, I noticed the way my father's hand rested on Lucas's shoulder, a silent declaration of where his loyalty lay. Dinner began with the usual pleasantries: business updates, investment chatter, casual remarks that held more weight than they appeared to. I barely spoke, letting the conversation swirl around me like a current I had no desire to fight. Then, my father cleared his throat, the room falling into a hush. "We have some important news to share tonight," he announced, his voice steady, commanding. "Our family has made a significant investment in Lucas's future." I set my fork down, fingers tightening around my napkin. The word investment sent an uneasy pulse through my veins. "Lucas has been given the opportunity to expand our business overseas," my father continued, pride evident in his tone. "This is a major step forward for him, and for us." The table erupted into murmurs of approval, hands reaching for champagne glasses in celebration. I stayed still, an odd sensation creeping up my spine. Something wasn't right. Lucas caught my expression and gave me a placating smile. "It's a huge opportunity, Lauren. The family is backing me on this." I forced a nod, but my stomach twisted. My family had never simply given anything. Every gesture, every dollar came with an agenda. I reached for my phone under the table, suddenly needing a distraction. As I absently opened my banking app, my breath caught in my throat. My college fund. Gone. I blinked, willing the numbers to change. I had left that account untouched for years, a safety net I'd built for myself in case I ever needed to escape this family's grasp. And now, it was empty. A cold wave of realization crashed over me. The investment my father had spoken of. It wasn't just in Lucas's career. It was stolen from me. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat, struggling to keep my face neutral as the room buzzed with congratulations. No one knew, no one cared, that my future had just been erased in a single transaction. I clenched my phone, fingers shaking. This couldn't be real. Robert Dawson looks up from his glass of whiskey as I push open the heavy study door, my pulse hammering in my ears. The dim lighting casts deep shadows across the bookshelves lining the walls, their polished wood reflecting the soft glow from the fireplace. The entire room reeks of power and control, his domain, his throne. He sets his glass down with deliberate ease, fingers tapping lightly against the rim as he studies me. "What do you want, Lauren?" I grip my phone tighter, the screen still displaying the horrifying reality of my drained account. My voice comes out sharper than I intend. "Where is my money?" He sighs, as if I'm nothing more than an inconvenience. "Be specific." I step forward, planting both hands on the mahogany desk. "The money in my college fund, the savings I built, untouched for years. It's gone. And I know you had something to do with it." For a moment, he says nothing. Then, with infuriating calm, he leans back in his leather chair, lacing his fingers together. "Ah, that." A bitter laugh escapes me. "Yes, that. What the hell did you do?" Robert tilts his head, not a single trace of remorse crossing his face. "I used it." The words land like a slap, my breath catching in my throat. "Used it," I echo, disbelieving. "That was my money!" He raises a hand, as if I'm overreacting. "And Lucas needed it more." A sickening silence stretches between us. "You stole from me," I say through clenched teeth. "You took my future and handed it to him like a damn gift." "Lauren, don't be dramatic," he replies, his tone dismissive. "You already have a good job. You're making something of yourself. Lucas needed this investment for his career. It was a necessary decision." The room tilts for a moment. I stare at him, waiting for some hint of regret, some flicker of acknowledgement that what he did was wrong. But there's nothing. Just cold, calculated justification. "You didn't even ask me," I whisper, because it wouldn't have changed anything. Heat flares in my chest, the weight of every past slight, every overlooked achievement pressing down on me. "You don't get to decide that. That money was mine. I earned it." "Lauren," a voice interrupts softly. I turn to see my mother standing in the doorway, arms crossed delicately over her chest. Unlike my father's blunt force, Catherine Dawson wields manipulation like a fine-tuned weapon. Her gaze is measured, her expression the perfect blend of understanding and quiet authority. "We understand this is upsetting for you," she says, stepping into the room. "But you need to look at the bigger picture." I laugh, but there's no humor in it. "Oh, please enlighten me." She sighs, like she's speaking to a child throwing a tantrum. "Your father only did what was best for the family. This isn't about taking from you, sweetheart. It's about ensuring stability for all of us." "Stability?" My voice rises. "By stealing from me? You think that's fair?" Catherine moves closer, lowering her voice as if to soften the blow. "Fair is relative, Lauren." "You're doing well. You don't need the money like Lucas does. Architecture is unstable. You've worked hard, but let's be honest. It's not the future we wanted for you." I freeze. There it is. The real truth buried beneath their justifications. This isn't just about the money. It's about control. They never wanted me to have independence. They wanted me to fall in line, to let them mold me into something more acceptable. My mother sits on the edge of the desk, her tone shifting to something almost coaxing. There is a way to fix this. You can have your money back. My stomach clenches. What's the catch? Catherine exchanges a glance with Robert before turning back to me. If you agree to leave architecture and pursue something more stable, something we can support, then we will replenish your account. You won't have to struggle. We'll take care of you. I blink at her, stunned. This isn't just theft, it's coercion. They want to buy my compliance, to force me into a future I never wanted in exchange for something that was already mine. The sheer audacity of it knocks the air from my lungs. You think you can buy me? I ask, my voice a dangerous whisper. Catherine reaches for my hand, but I pull away. Lauren, we just want what's best for you. A slow, disbelieving smile tugs at my lips, but it holds no warmth. Number, you want what's best for you. Robert exhales impatiently. Enough of this. You can take our offer, or you can move forward without our help, but you will respect the decision that was made. I take a step back, my fists clench so tight my nails dig into my palms. Do you really think I'm going to bow down to you? Maggie opens the door to her apartment, her brows knitting together as she takes one look at me. Her concern is immediate, the warmth in her eyes a stark contrast to the cold, calculated world I just left behind. They're not going to stop, Lauren, she says, stepping aside to let me in. I don't answer right away. My body moves on autopilot as I step into the familiar space, the scent of cinnamon from a forgotten candle on the counter, the low hum of jazz playing softly in the background, the scattered notes and files from Maggie's work spread across the coffee table. It's a mess, but it's safe. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Maggie closes the door behind me. Sit. Talk. I collapse onto her worn-out couch, pressing my fingers against my temples as I recount everything. The dinner, the missing money, the way my father dismissed me as if I were an afterthought. Maggie listens, arms crossed, nodding along, but the more I speak, the tighter her expression becomes. When I finish, she exhales, shaking her head. I knew they were ruthless, but this? She pushes a hand through her hair. That's another level. I scoff, bitter. They think they own me. They do own you, Lauren, Maggie says, matter of fact. Or at least, they think they do. I lift my chin. They don't, not anymore. Maggie studies me for a moment, then moves to her desk. She pulls open a drawer and retrieves a thick, overstuffed file. The worn edges and bent corners suggest it's been handled more times than I'd like to know. She walks back and places it in my lap. I think you need to see this. A weight settles in my chest as I look at the folder, my fingers hesitating before flipping it open. The first page is a bank statement, mine. Or at least, it was mine. The balance reads 0. The transaction history shows massive withdrawals dating back years, draining the account bit by bit. My breath catches. This isn't recent, I murmur. Maggie shakes her head. They didn't just take your money for Lucas. Your fund was emptied years ago, long before this supposed investment in him. I flip the page. More financial records, more withdrawals. But the numbers don't add up. Some money was funneled into accounts under Lucas's name, but the majority, far more than I had in that fund, was moved elsewhere. I turn another page. My father's name stares back at me, bold and undeniable. What the hell is this? My voice comes out uneven, but my grip on the pages tightens. Maggie exhales. It's what I've been trying to tell you. Your dad didn't just steal your savings to help Lucas. He used it to cover his own financial mess. I shake my head, disbelieving. Number, that's not possible. He's Robert Dawson. He's one of the wealthiest men in Savannah. On paper, maybe. Maggie sits beside me, resting an elbow on the couch's arm. But these records tell a different story. Loans, investments that tanked, hidden transfers to offshore accounts, and now, this. She taps the last page. It's a document I don't immediately recognize. Something about a private bank loan signed under the Dawson family name. I stare at it. Realization hitting like a punch to the gut. He's drowning, I whisper. Maggie nods. And he's been using every resource, every person he can to stay afloat. The anger bubbling inside me turns into something heavier. They knew. My parents knew. They've always known. And they still sat there tonight, looking me in the eye, lying to my face. Maggie sighs. Look, I don't want to tell you what to do, but if you go after him for this, you're not just fighting a man with money. You're fighting a man with desperation. I press my lips together, my heartbeat thrumming loud in my ears. He thinks I'll stay quiet. Maggie doesn't say anything. She doesn't have to. I lift my chin, staring at the documents one last time, before closing the file with finality. He's dead wrong. Stephen Klein pushes a thick folder across his desk, his gaze sharp and assessing. If this is true, we can take Robert Dawson to court. I stare at the folder, my pulse drumming in my ears. The sleek office around me, glass walls, polished wood, shelves stacked with legal books, feels suffocating. The weight of what I'm about to do settles in my chest like a stone. Maggie sits beside me, her expression unreadable, but I know her well enough to sense the quiet storm behind her calm. She had insisted on coming with me, convinced that I needed backup. I was grateful, even if I hadn't said it out loud. I reach for the folder, flipping it open. Inside are copies of the documents Maggie uncovered. The forged loan under the Dawson family name, the missing funds, the offshore transfers tied directly to my father. It's all there. It is true, I say, my voice steady despite the turmoil raging inside me. Stephen leans back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Then let's talk about what this means. I grip the edges of the folder, bracing myself. You have a few options, he continues. The first is to confront him directly, threaten legal action, and attempt to settle privately. Given your father's reputation, that might be his preferred route. Maggie snorts. Robert Dawson doesn't settle. He destroys obstacles. Stephen nods. Which is why option 2 is a full lawsuit. We take this to court, expose everything, and force him to pay. I exhale slowly. What are my chances? If the evidence holds up? Strong. But Robert Dawson is not just any businessman. He has deep connections, legal teams that have buried scandals bigger than this. He won't go down without a fight. The room is silent for a long moment. I think of my mother's voice, so smooth in its manipulation. You can have your money back if you walk away from architecture. I think of my father's dismissive tone. Lucas needed it more. They had counted on me doing what I always did, accepting it, biting my tongue, playing the part of the obedient daughter. Not this time. I want to fight, I say, my decision solidifying with every breath. Stephen studies me, his expression unreadable. Then he nods. All right. Then we start by gathering more evidence. He reaches for a separate file and pulls out a few sheets. I have contacts who can dig into the offshore accounts. If we find a direct link between those funds and fraudulent activity, we'll have an even stronger case. I nod, but something gnaws at me. What about Lucas? He was a recipient of some of the money. Will this hurt him? Maggie shifts beside me. You're still protecting him? I hesitate. I don't know. Lucas had been given everything, handed opportunity after opportunity, while I had been left to fend for myself. And yet, a small part of me still wanted to believe he wasn't fully complicit. Stephen exhales. Lucas could be a liability, but if he wasn't actively involved in the fraud, he won't take the brunt of this. The focus is Robert. I nod, absorbing the information. One last thing, Stephen says, tapping the desk. Once we move forward, things will escalate. Your father will retaliate. I meet his gaze, my hands curling into fists. Let him. Maggie reaches over, squeezing my arm. You're not alone in this. For the first time in years, I believe her. Lucas swirls the whiskey in his glass, his fingers tapping against the rim as he watches me approach. The dim lighting of the bar casts deep shadows across his face, making his expression unreadable. He exhales, slow and measured, before speaking. So, you really want to destroy this family? His voice is quiet, but there's a sharpness to it that cuts through the ambient hum of conversation around us. I stop beside his table, letting the words settle between us. There's no heat in his tone, no outright anger, just a quiet accusation laced with exhaustion. I slide into the seat across from him. I'm not the one who did the destroying, Lucas. His lips press into a thin line as he takes a slow sip of his drink. He doesn't argue, doesn't deny it, just stares into the amber liquid like it holds all the answers. Did you know? I ask, keeping my voice even. About the money? Lucas sets his glass down, running a hand through his hair. Lauren? Did you know? He leans back, letting out a slow breath. I knew about some of it, he admits, finally looking up at me. Not everything. Dad told me you agreed to help the family, that you... I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Agreed? You actually believed that? Lucas clenches his jaw, eyes flickering with something, guilt, maybe, or frustration. What was I supposed to think? They said you understood, that you knew this was the best way to... The best way to what? I snap. To fund your career? To fix Dad's mistakes? To erase me? His gaze darkens. That's not fair. I fold my arms, leaning forward. You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about how I worked my ass off while you got handed everything. Let's talk about how I built my future, only to have it stolen because our father decided you were more important. Let's talk about how you stood by and let it happen. Lucas doesn't speak. His grip on his glass tightens, knuckles white. A sharp laugh escapes me. You didn't even question it, did you? He exhales sharply, rubbing a hand over his face. Of course I questioned it. But what was I supposed to do, Lauren? Say no? Walk away? You could have said something. You could have asked me. Lucas shakes his head. And what would that have changed? I stare at him, feeling something inside me crack. My own brother. My own flesh and blood. He let this happen. Lucas looks away first, his fingers drumming against the table. You think you can fight him? It's barely above a whisper, but the weight behind the words makes my chest tighten. I swallow my anger, meeting his gaze. No, Lucas. He controls you. A flicker of something crosses his face, but it's gone too fast for me to place. He shifts in his seat, looking past me like he's searching for an answer he doesn't want to find. I push back my chair, standing. I'm done letting him take from me. If you want to keep pretending this is okay, go ahead, but I won't. Lucas doesn't stop me as I walk away. I step out into the cool night air, the sounds of the city a welcome contrast to the suffocating weight of that conversation. Behind me, through the bar's window, Lucas remains frozen in his seat, staring into his glass, torn between the family that raised him and the truth he can't ignore. Maggie throws a newspaper onto the table, her face flushed with anger. They just painted you as a lunatic in the press. We need to hit back, now. I blink at her, still groggy from the restless night before. My fingers curl around the edge of the paper as I pull it closer. The bold black headline glares up at me. Lauren Dawson. A daughter's revenge? My stomach twists. I skim the article, bile rising in my throat as I take in the carefully crafted narrative. It paints me as a bitter, jealous woman, lashing out at my family because I could never measure up. A source close to the family, which is clearly Robert, or one of his lapdogs, claims, Lauren always felt overshadowed by Lucas. Now she's trying to bring everyone down with her. I slam the paper shut, my pulse pounding in my ears. Maggie paces the room, her hands balled into fists. This is classic character assassination. He's trying to discredit you before you even step foot in a courtroom. I take a slow breath, forcing myself to steady the rage boiling inside me. And people are going to believe it, Maggie scoffs. Of course they will. Your father's been grooming the public for years, making sure no one questions his version of the truth. She gestures to the newspaper. But this? This isn't just about smearing you. It's a warning. He's telling you to back off. I grip the paper tighter, my nails digging into the thin material. My hands tremble, but not with fear, with fury. I expected resistance. I expected manipulation. But this? Turning me into the villain in my own story? Reducing years of sacrifice and pain into nothing more than sibling rivalry? I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. He thinks this will scare me. Maggie stops pacing, watching me carefully. Does it? I meet her gaze, my jaw tightening. No. A beat of silence passes between us. Then my phone buzzes. I glance at the screen, unfamiliar number. I hesitate for half a second before answering. Lauren Dawson? A female voice asks. Who's asking? This is Jess Harper. I'm an investigative journalist. Maggie's eyes widen. She mouths, Jess Harper? I barely nod in response. Jess continues. I'm calling because I have something Robert Dawson doesn't want the world to see. I straighten, gripping the phone tighter. I'm listening. A pause. Then, I can't talk over the phone. But trust me when I say, this could change everything. My pulse quickens. I exchange a glance with Maggie, who's already nodding, her expression urgent. Jess's voice is calm but firm. Are you ready to turn the tables? I inhale deeply, forcing control over my racing thoughts. Then I exhale slowly, the fire in my chest settling into something sharper, more focused. Yes. Robert Dawson sits in his office, the dim light casting sharp shadows across his face. His fingers tighten around his phone as he speaks, voice like steel. I don't care that she's my daughter. Find a way to stop her. A pause. The person on the other end murmurs something, but Robert's expression doesn't change. His jaw clenches, his knuckles white against the polished wood of his desk. She has no idea what she's dealing with, he mutters, more to himself than to the caller. I built this empire. I won't let her tear it down. His free hand hovers over a stack of documents, legal briefs, media statements, emergency strategies, damage control. He's always been a step ahead, always known how to manipulate a situation before it spiraled out of control. But this time, there's a wild card. Lauren, his daughter, the one he underestimated. He exhales sharply, shifting his focus. Summon the legal team. I want every loophole explored, every potential lawsuit filed. Find a way to silence her before this spreads. Another pause. Then Robert's lips curve into something resembling a smirk. And get in touch with the media. I want more coverage. Paint her as unstable, irrational. If we control the narrative, she loses credibility. He hangs up without waiting for a response. The door creaks open, and Lucas steps in, his expression tense. His gaze flickers toward the scattered papers, the half-empty glass of scotch, the weight of an empire teetering on the edge. Robert doesn't look up. We need you to make a statement. Lucas hesitates. What kind of statement? His father finally meets his eyes. You need to denounce her publicly. Make it clear that she's acting alone. Distance yourself. Lucas shifts, crossing his arms. You want me to throw my own sister under the bus? Robert's gaze sharpens. She's doing this to herself. Silence. Lucas swallows, then forces out. Are you sure about this? If this goes south, the whole family will be ruined. Robert slams his fist against the desk. The sound echoes through the room like a gunshot. We will be ruined if she wins. His voice is low, dangerous. You don't have a choice. For the first time, Lucas doesn't immediately respond. His father's words are absolute, a command rather than a discussion. But something inside him shifts. He lowers his head, nodding stiffly before stepping back toward the door. His hand hovers over the handle, his mind racing. For the first time in his life, he isn't sure if his father is right. Maggie slams a newspaper onto the table, her eyes blazing with fury. They just called you a liability to the company. This is war. I pick up the paper with measured movements, though my pulse is hammering. The front page features a picture of me, an old one from a charity gala years ago, back when I was still playing the role of Robert Dawson's obedient daughter. Lauren Dawson, the bitter heiress, clawing for relevance. I force myself to read it, even as my stomach twists. The article paints me as an unstable, jealous woman who couldn't handle living in Lucas's shadow. It suggests that I'm making baseless accusations against my own family as a desperate grab for attention. They don't outright say I'm lying, but they don't have to. The implication is enough. Maggie is pacing beside me, barely containing her anger. This is calculated. Every word, every angle, every source. They're making you look like an unhinged brat who just wants to tear down her own family. I flip through the rest of the newspaper, my movements slow, deliberate. Another article, another headline. Lucas Dawson's rise. How the Golden Son overcame family, struggles to lead the future. They're propping him up, elevating him, making sure the public sees him as the true heir of Robert Dawson's empire while simultaneously tearing me down. Maggie glares at me. Why aren't you saying anything? Are you not furious right now? Oh, I am. But fury alone won't win this fight. I exhale through my nose, folding the paper neatly before setting it back on the table. They're doing exactly what I expected them to. Maggie pauses, watching me closely. And? I lift my gaze to hers. And I'm not playing their game. Before she can respond, my phone buzzes. I glance at the screen. Unknown number. Maggie leans in. It could be another hit piece waiting to happen. Or it could be something else entirely. I answer. Lauren Dawson. A woman's voice comes through the line. Smooth, steady. Jess Harper, I believe we spoke briefly before. I straighten. I remember. I have something Robert Dawson doesn't want the world to see. Maggie's eyes widen. She grabs her laptop, already preparing to dig into whatever Jess is about to reveal. I tighten my grip on the phone. Tell me. Jess is quiet for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Not over the phone. Meet me at Cafe Bellamy in an hour. You'll want to see this in person. I hesitate for only a second. Then, I'll be there. Cafe Bellamy is quiet in the late afternoon, the warm glow of the setting sun casting long shadows across the wooden tables. I spot Jess instantly, a sharp, poised woman with a folder resting beside her untouched cup of coffee. She watches me approach, then gestures to the seat across from her. Lauren! I sit, my heartbeat steady but alert. What do you have? Jess slides the folder across the table. Evidence. I pull it toward me, flipping it open. The first thing I see is a set of bank statements. At first glance, they seem ordinary, until I notice the offshore account. The name attached to it, Robert Dawson. I inhale sharply. Jess watches me carefully. That account has been active for years. It's where he's funneled money that was never supposed to leave the company. Stolen funds, fraudulent transfers. This could bring him down. I keep flipping. More transactions. Shell companies. Falsified reports. This is it. The proof I need. I lift my gaze to hers. My fingers tighten around the folder. It's time to take him down. Robert Dawson leans back in his leather chair, a smirk playing at his lips as the news anchor drones on about the latest corporate drama. Someone else's scandal, not his. A glass of whiskey sits untouched beside him, the amber liquid catching the dim glow of his office lamp. He has won. Lauren is done. The media storm he orchestrated had done its job. Public opinion had turned against her, branding her as the bitter, jealous daughter grasping for relevance. His legal team was working to shut down any further action she might take. It was only a matter of time before she crumbled under the weight of it all. Then his phone buzzes. Robert glances at it lazily, expecting an update from his lawyer or another news cycle confirming his victory. But when he sees the notification, his smirk falters. Breaking news. Robert Dawson under investigation for financial fraud. The blood drains from his face. His fingers tighten around the phone as he taps the alert, eyes scanning the article. His name dominates the headline, followed by a damning list of allegations. Secret offshore accounts linked directly to his name. Misappropriated company funds traced to personal expenditures. Falsified business expenses spanning the last decade. The words blur together, but the weight of them is unmistakable. Someone leaked the documents. His chest tightens as he scrolls further. The article cites an unnamed whistleblower, someone with insider knowledge of Dawson Enterprises' financial dealings. Lauren. Robert slams his glass onto the desk, the sharp crack of crystal against wood reverberating through the silent office. He forces himself to take slow, steady breaths. This isn't over. This can't be over. His hands move on instinct, dialing his lawyer. Paul, he barks the moment the call connects. Tell me this is a mistake. A pause. Then Paul exhales. I was about to call you. It's not just a headline, Robert. The Securities and Exchange Commission is looking into the allegations. And it's worse than that. Worse! Robert snarls. The board has scheduled an emergency meeting. Silence. Robert's grip on the phone tightens. They're considering a vote to suspend you as CEO, Paul continues, his voice tense. They're afraid the investigation could bring the company down with you. Rage surges through him. I built this company, he snaps. They wouldn't dare. Robert. Paul's tone shifts, the edge of formality fading. They will if they think it's the only way to survive. For the first time, a ripple of panic threads through him. The board has always been predictable. Cautious, yes, but loyal. But if they're willing to even entertain the idea of cutting him loose, his mind races. Who else is involved in this? Who is whispering in their ears? Lauren. Of course it's her. She thinks she's won. She thinks this is the end. But she's wrong. He won't let her take everything from him. Robert leans forward, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. She thinks she's won. His knuckles turn white around the phone. Not yet. I lean back in my chair, exhaling as I read the same headline for the third time. Robert Dawson under investigation for financial fraud. Maggie sits across from me, legs crossed, her grin wide with satisfaction. We did it, she says, lifting her coffee mug in a mock toast. This is the beginning of the end for him. I should feel triumphant. I should be celebrating. Instead, a cold unease settles in my chest. It's not over yet. The man I grew up fearing isn't the type to let everything slip through his fingers without a fight. Robert Dawson is many things. Ruthless, manipulative, power-hungry. But weak has never been one of them. And that terrifies me. My phone buzzes against the wooden table, vibrating insistently. I glance down at the screen. Lucas. Maggie raises an eyebrow. Are you answering that? I hesitate. Then I swipe to accept. Lucas's voice comes through the speaker, lower than usual, strained. Lauren. I don't say anything, letting him be the first to break the silence. A deep breath, then. Dad's losing control. The board is meeting tomorrow. They might remove him. My fingers tighten around the phone. They're actually considering it? More than considering it. Lucas sighs. They're looking for a way to push him out without tanking the company's reputation any further. I glance at Maggie, who's already reading my expression. This is happening. Lucas clears his throat. I know you wanted this, but are you sure? The hesitation in his voice is unmistakable. The brother who once stood firmly in our father's shadow, who never questioned his authority, is finally wavering. I press my lips together, then answer. It's what he deserves. A long silence follows. When Lucas speaks again, his voice is softer. I don't think he ever saw this coming. I let out a dry laugh. That's his problem, isn't it? He never thought anyone could stand up to him. Another pause. Then, be careful, Lauren. The call ends. I stare at the screen, my reflection barely visible in the blackened glass. Lucas might be wavering, but Robert isn't done. Not yet. Meanwhile, across town, Robert Dawson stands in the center of his office, his posture stiff, eyes hard as he glares at the men seated before him. His inner circle, advisors, lawyers, crisis management specialists, every single one of them is useless. The room is thick with tension as one of the senior advisors clears his throat. Robert, we need to discuss your position at Dawson Enterprises. Robert's jaw tightens. My position, he repeats, voice cold. If you step down voluntarily, it'll look better for the company. The board is... No. The room goes silent. Robert straightens his cuffs, exuding the same authority that's kept his empire intact for decades. I built this company. I made every single one of you wealthy. And now you expect me to walk away? A younger lawyer shifts in his seat. If the board votes against you, you won't have a choice. Robert stares at him, unblinking. There is always a choice. He turns toward the window, looking out over the city skyline. Somewhere out there, Lauren is watching this unfold, thinking she's won, but she's wrong. He still has options. Later that night, back at my apartment, I sit in front of my laptop, scrolling through endless news articles, social media posts, and speculation about Robert's future. Every publication is covering it. The fall of a business mogul. Maggie paces behind me, running a hand through her hair. We should celebrate. I don't look up. Not yet. She sighs. You're really incapable of enjoying a victory, huh? Before I can respond, my laptop dings with a new email. My breath catches as I see the subject line. Confidential documents. Robert Dawson's forged loans. My pulse quickens as I open the message. Attached are several scanned documents. Loan applications filed under my name. My name. My chest tightens. He didn't just steal my money. He forged loans under my identity. Maggie leans over my shoulder, eyes widening. Lauren, this is it. I stare at the documents, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Robert Dawson is finished. Time to end this. The courtroom is silent as Robert Dawson enters, his face a mask of control. He carries himself with the same arrogant confidence that has defined him for decades. But this time, I see something different in his eyes, a flicker of something he rarely allows himself to show. Doubt. The air is thick with tension. Reporters fill the gallery, their cameras poised, waiting for the downfall of a once revered businessman. The murmurs of speculation hush as the judge takes her seat. I sit across from my father, but this is no family dinner, no tense holiday gathering where his word is law. This is a battlefield, and for the first time, I'm armed with the truth. My lawyer, Stephen Klein, sits beside me, flipping through a thick stack of documents. He glances at me once before the proceedings begin. Are you ready? I nod. I've never been more ready in my life. Robert's attorney, a polished man in an expensive suit, rises first. Your Honor, my client is a victim of a deliberate campaign to destroy his reputation. These accusations have already caused irreparable harm to his career, his business, and his family. I watch as Robert maintains his usual composed expression. He's still playing the role, the misunderstood patriarch, the wrongfully accused businessman. The attorney continues, his voice smooth and confident. We are filing a countersuit against Miss Dawson for defamation and financial damages amounting to $10 million. A murmur spreads across the courtroom. Maggie, sitting behind me, stiffens in her seat. I don't react. I expected this. Stephen stands next. His voice is steady, unwavering. Your Honor, the evidence we present today will not only prove Mr. Dawson's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, but it will also expose his extensive history of financial misconduct. Miss Dawson is not the one who has harmed this family. Mr. Dawson has. The judge nods. Proceed. Stephen starts with the first piece of evidence, the forged documents. I hold my breath as he lays them out, detailing how Robert falsified loan applications under my name. Each signature, each document, each act of calculated betrayal. Mr. Dawson's actions were not only illegal, Stephen states, voice sharp, they were deeply personal. He didn't just steal from investors or business partners. He stole from his own daughter. Robert remains motionless, his face a carefully constructed mask. But I see the tightness in his jaw, the clench of his fingers, the barely contained fury beneath the surface. And then, the moment I've been waiting for. Lucas is called to the stand. I turn to look at him as he rises, walking slowly toward the witness stand. He's paler than usual, his expression tense. As he sits down, the bailiff swears him in. The courtroom is silent. "Mr. Dawson," Stephen begins, "you are Robert Dawson's son, correct?" Lucas nods. "Yes. Did you have knowledge of the financial transactions in question?" A pause. Lucas glances at our father, then at me. I don't look away. Finally, he speaks. "I knew about the missing money." My hands tighten in my lap. Stephen presses forward. "And did you try to stop it?" Lucas exhales, looking down at his hands. Then he shakes his head. "No." The courtroom shifts, murmurs breaking out. I can feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us. "But why?" Stephen asks. Lucas hesitates. Then he lifts his head. "Because my father told me Lauren had agreed to it, that she wanted to help the family." I hear Maggie curse softly behind me. I inhale sharply, trying to keep my emotions in check. Stephen leans in. "And do you now believe that to be true?" Lucas turns to look at me. He shakes his head. "No." Another pause. Then, "My father lied." The courtroom erupts. The judge bangs her gavel. Reporters scramble to capture the moment. I sit frozen, staring at my brother, my heart pounding. Lucas just did the one thing Robert never thought he'd do. He turned against him. I shift my gaze to my father. For the first time in my life, I see something I never imagined I would see in Robert Dawson. Defeat. His grip tightens on the table. His jaw clenches. His carefully built empire is crumbling, and he knows it. The end is coming. As I step out of the courtroom, the cold air fills my lungs, sharp and biting. The weight of the trial still lingers on my shoulders. But I know this war isn't over yet. Maggie's hand clamps around my arm before I can even take another step. "It's not over," she says, her voice tight. "He still has one move left." I turn to face her, my pulse quickening. "What do you mean?" Maggie scans the crowd, lowering her voice. "Robert's working behind the scenes. He's calling in every favor he has left. If he can't win in court, he's going to make sure this case never sees the inside of one again." My stomach twists. I should have known. Of course, Robert Dawson would never go down without trying to manipulate the system one last time. We push through the throng of reporters, flashing cameras capturing my every move. My phone buzzes in my pocket, but I ignore it for now. I need a second to think, a moment to process how much deeper he's willing to dig into his own corruption just to save himself. Once we make it to the car, I finally turn to Maggie. "Tell me everything." Inside my apartment, I pace the floor, heart pounding as Maggie lays it all out. "He's bribing key figures to stall the case. If he gets to the right people, this lawsuit could be buried in red tape for years." I clench my fists. "So what do we do?" Maggie exhales sharply, running a hand through her hair. "We need leverage, something that forces his hand. If we wait, we lose." My mind races. The evidence we presented was damning, but Robert has lived his whole life navigating around accountability. If anyone knows how to buy his way out, it's him. Then my phone buzzes again. I snatch it off the table and see Jess Harper's name flashing on the screen. I answer, barely managing a steady voice. "Jess?" "Lauren." Her tone is urgent. "I have something. Someone, actually." I exchange a glance with Maggie before stepping away, gripping the phone tighter. "Who?" "A source inside Dawson Enterprises. They're willing to testify, but there's a catch." Of course there is. They're afraid. If they speak out, they need protection. I press my fingers to my temple, exhaling. "And you trust them?" Jess pauses. "I do, but you need to act fast. If Robert finds out, he'll make sure they never get the chance to talk." I nod, though she can't see me. "Where can I meet them?" "You can't," Jess says. "Not yet, but they're willing to provide something else in the meantime, something big." "What is it?" There's a rustle on the other end of the line. Then Jess speaks again. "Bank records, offshore accounts, money funneling, everything, direct ties to some very powerful people who will not be happy if this gets out. I inhale sharply. If that's true, this isn't just about Robert anymore. If I expose him now, I won't just be taking him down, I'll be taking down everyone who enabled him. Maggie must see the shift in my expression. "What is it?" she asks. I lower the phone slowly, my pulse hammering in my ears. "We're going public." She nods, already grabbing her laptop. "Then let's burn it all down." I stare at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The weight of the moment is pressing in on me, but there's no hesitation left. I type a single message to Jess. "Get your cameras ready." Robert Dawson steps into the boardroom, his usual confident stride noticeably stiffer. The weight of something unseen presses down on the air, thick and suffocating. His advisors, men who had once hung on his every word, exchange glances but say nothing. He knows something is wrong. He knows before he even turns his head and sees the cameras. Before he registers the unfamiliar faces in the room, reporters, journalists, all poised like vultures, waiting for a dying animal to collapse. The Dawson Enterprises Board of Directors sits at the long, polished mahogany table, their expressions unreadable. The tension in the room coils tighter when a man steps forward, a man Robert recognizes. Anthony Graves, his own chief financial officer. Bile rises in Robert's throat. Not him. Lauren watches it all unfold from her own vantage point. She stands near the back of the room, next to Jess Harper, who has her recorder on, her phone streaming everything live. Robert squares his shoulders and approaches the board, his voice low but firm. "What the hell is this?" One of the board members, a gray-haired man who had once been an ally, clears his throat. "Mr. Dawson, we've convened this meeting in response to certain allegations that have been brought to light." The cameras flash. Robert's jaw clenches. "Allegations!" He scoffs, shaking his head. "You're entertaining rumors now?" Anthony Graves steps forward. "Not rumors." His voice is even, but the hint of guilt is there. "Facts." Lauren sees it. The flicker of fear in Robert's eyes, quickly masked by cold fury. Then Anthony speaks again, and the room stills. "Mr. Dawson," he begins, "I have spent the last decade managing Dawson Enterprises financials under your direct orders. Today, I am coming forward to confirm that fraudulent activities have taken place within this company, activities that have personally benefited you at the expense of shareholders, investors, and even your own family." A ripple of whispers spreads through the boardroom. The reporters lean in, microphones at the ready. Robert doesn't blink. "That's an outrageous accusation." Anthony remains steady. "The offshore accounts in the Caymans, the misappropriated company funds, the falsified loan applications, the personal siphoning of money that should have gone to Dawson Enterprises itself." Click, click, click. More camera flashes. Lauren holds her breath, watching her father navigate the flames she set around him. He was always good at talking his way out of things. But not this time. Robert lets out a dry laugh. "You have no proof." Jess Harper steps forward, holding up a folder. "We do." She sets it down on the table in front of the board. "Bank statements, signed documents, witness testimonies. It's all here." Robert's hand twitches. One of the board members opens the folder, scanning the contents. The moment their face pales, Lauren knows. It's over. The room descends into controlled chaos. Reporters hurl questions. Board members exchange urgent whispers. And Robert is silent. He knows there's no spinning this. The board chairwoman finally raises a hand. "I believe we have all seen enough," she says, voice firm. Effective immediately, Robert Dawson is removed as CEO of Dawson Enterprises. He will no longer have any involvement with this company in any capacity. Lauren watches as the words hit him like bullets. Removed. Barred. Erased. His life's work, the thing he fought tooth and nail to control, is gone in an instant. But the final blow hasn't landed yet. A pair of heels click against the floor. Catherine Dawson steps forward. Robert's wife, Lauren's mother. For years, she stood beside him, playing the role of the perfect corporate wife. For years, she excused his behavior, softened his cruelty, reinforced the family's image. For years, she played the game. But now, she looks at Robert with something unreadable in her eyes. And when she speaks, her voice is even. "You did this to yourself, Robert." For the first time, Robert is truly alone. The silence is suffocating. Robert turns his head, searching the room for an ally. For someone, anyone, who will stand by him. Lucas is standing by the door. Their eyes meet, but Lucas doesn't move. Doesn't step forward. Doesn't defend him. Robert's fists clench. A lifetime spent building an empire. A lifetime spent demanding loyalty. And now, at the end of it all, no one will even meet his eyes. Maggie walks beside me as we exit the building, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's over." I nod, but the word doesn't settle right in my chest. Is it over? The cool evening air feels different, lighter somehow, but the weight in my stomach refuses to lift. I should feel victorious. I should feel like I've won. Instead, there's only an odd, hollow ache where my rage used to be. For years, I let my anger at Robert fuel me. It kept me standing when I wanted to fall, kept me fighting when I had no reason to. And now, the fight is over. The empire he built is crumbling. The board has cut him out, and his name is permanently tainted. So why doesn't it feel like enough? Hours later, I sit on the couch in my apartment, staring at the skyline through my window. Savannah stretches out before me, glittering against the night, a city moving forward even as I sit still. Maggie is in the kitchen, pouring wine into 2 glasses. She sets one down in front of me before dropping onto the couch with a sigh. "You're thinking too much." I let out a humorless laugh. "Hard not to." She studies me for a long moment. "You should be celebrating." I know she's right, but I don't have the energy to pretend. I swirl the wine in my glass, watching the deep red liquid catch the dim light. "It just doesn't feel the way I thought it would." Maggie exhales, setting her own glass aside. "You spent your whole life fighting him, Lauren. It's not easy to let go of a battle when it becomes part of who you are." She's right, of course. But before I can say anything, a knock sounds at my door. Maggie lifts a brow. "Expecting someone?" I shake my head and stand, padding barefoot across the room. When I pull open the door, I freeze. Lucas. His suit jacket is wrinkled, his tie loosened. There's a shadow of something unreadable in his eyes. "I didn't know where else to go," he says. Maggie shifts behind me, but I don't turn. I grip the edge of the doorframe, feeling the familiar tension tighten in my chest. He sighs, rubbing a hand over his face. I don't know what to do now. The admission stuns me. Lucas has always been the golden boy, the one who had everything handed to him, the one who never questioned where his next step would be. But now, with Robert's empire gone, he looks lost. For the first time, I see him not as my father's favorite, but as someone who was just as trapped as I was. I don't know if I can forgive him for standing by while Robert tore me down, but maybe, just maybe, I can understand. I step aside. "Come in." He exhales, shoulders sagging, and walks in. Maggie doesn't say anything, but I catch the flicker of approval in her eyes before she excuses herself to the kitchen, giving us space. Lucas sits on the couch, staring at his hands. I never wanted it to be like this. I stay silent, letting him talk. "I spent so long thinking I had to be loyal to him," he continues, "that if I did everything right, I'd be safe, that I wouldn't end up like you." His voice cracks slightly, and when he looks up, the rawness in his expression takes me off guard. But I was wrong. A lump forms in my throat. There was a time I would have relished this, watching Lucas realize that Robert was never the man he thought he was. But now, it just makes me tired. "What are you going to do?" I ask softly. He exhales. "I don't know." Neither of us speaks for a long moment. Then, finally, I say, "You'll figure it out." His lips twitch, almost like a smile. You always did. I let out a quiet breath. It's not an apology, but maybe it's enough for now. Later that night, after Lucas leaves, I find an envelope tucked under my door. My stomach tightens as I pick it up, fingers brushing over the familiar handwriting. Catherine Dawson. I carry it to the couch and sit down, hesitating before tearing it open. Inside, there's a single note. Not an apology, not an explanation, just a single, haunting sentence. Maybe one day you'll understand why I stayed. I stare at the words, my pulse steady, but my mind racing. I don't know if I'll ever understand. I don't know if I'll ever forgive her. But for the first time, I tuck the letter away instead of throwing it out, just in case. Much later, after Maggie has gone home and my apartment is silent, I step onto my balcony. The night air is crisp, carrying the distant hum of the city. I close my eyes, inhaling deeply, letting the coolness settle into my bones. For the first time in years, I feel truly free. The dim light flickers against the peeling wallpaper, casting uneasy shadows along the walls of the motel room. Robert Dawson sits on the edge of the bed, his back hunched, a bottle of whiskey resting on the nightstand. The ice in his glass has long since melted, watering down the burn he once welcomed. On the television, muted news coverage plays, his own name plastered across the screen in bold letters. Disgraced business tycoon Robert Dawson faces criminal charges. He should turn it off, should stop watching. But he doesn't. The phone beside him vibrates, rattling against the wood. An unknown number. He hesitates. Then, slowly, he picks it up. What do you want? The voice on the other end is clipped, professional. A lawyer. Not his. Not anymore. The lawsuits are moving forward, the man informs him. You should prepare yourself, Mr. Dawson. You're looking at real prison time. Robert exhales sharply, his grip tightening around the phone. He wants to argue, to call in a favor, to do something, anything. But he knows. There are no favors left to call, no allies willing to protect him, no power to wield. The line goes dead. Robert lowers the phone, staring blankly at the floor. His hands tremble as he sets the glass down, whiskey sloshing over the rim. For the first time in his life, he has nothing. The riverfront is quiet at this hour, the air crisp with the faint scent of salt. The city hums in the distance, but here, by the water, it feels detached. Like a world Lauren can step in and out of as she pleases. She walks slowly, hands tucked into her coat pockets. It's over. She won. So why does it feel so strange? The hatred, the anger, the resentment. It was the fuel that kept her moving for years. And now, with Robert's empire gone, his reputation in ruins, there's an emptiness she hadn't expected. She stops at a bench, gazing at the rippling surface of the water. Footsteps approach from behind. Lucas. He doesn't speak right away, just sits beside her, hands clasped between his knees, watching the river like it holds all the answers. So, he says finally, voice quiet. This is the end, huh? Lauren exhales. I don't know. Maybe it's just the beginning. A small, humorless chuckle escapes him. Of what? She doesn't answer, because truthfully, she isn't sure. They sit in silence for a while, the wind tugging at loose strands of her hair. Lucas shifts beside her. I don't know where I belong anymore. Lauren glances at him, searching his expression. He looks different. Tired, yes. But there's something else there. Uncertainty. A lack of direction he's never had before. He sighs. I was always the golden child, but I never knew what that really meant. Now I don't have to be. She tilts her head. So what are you going to do? He huffs a laugh, shaking his head. That's the thing, I have no idea. For a long time, she would have used this moment to twist the knife, to remind him that he benefited from their father's manipulation while she was cast aside. But now, watching the lost look on his face, she realizes something. Lucas was never free either. Maybe none of them were. She leans back, exhaling into the cool night air. Then figure it out, Lucas. His head turns toward her, eyes narrowing slightly. But this time, she says, voice softer, do it for yourself. Lucas studies her for a moment. Then, slowly, he nods. He stands, shoving his hands into his pockets, staring out at the water for a few more seconds before turning away. Lauren watches him walk off, unsure if their relationship will ever truly heal. But at least, for the first time, they are both free to be their own people. Across the city, Robert remains in his motel room, gripping his glass with white-knuckled fingers. The empire he built is gone, and no one, not his family, not his colleagues, will even pick up the phone. The apartment is nearly empty now, the walls stripped of their memories, the floors cleared of footprints that once told a story. Boxes are stacked by the door, each one filled with fragments of a life Lauren is ready to leave behind. She exhales, staring out the window at the Savannah skyline one last time. This city had shaped her. It had tested her, broken her, and, in the end, forced her to rebuild herself. And now, it was time to go. Maggie steps inside, brushing dust off her hands. That's the last of it. She glances around. Weird seeing this place like this. Lauren smirks. Weirder knowing I won't be coming back. Maggie folds her arms, watching her carefully. Are you ready for this? Lauren doesn't hesitate. I've never been more ready. A knock at the door interrupts them. Lauren turns, and for a moment, she considers ignoring it. But when she pulls the door open, Lucas stands there, hands shoved into his pockets. They don't exchange pleasantries. They don't need to. He steps inside, looking around at the empty space, before holding something out. A roll of paper, yellowed with age, edges frayed. I found this in Dad's office, he says quietly. Thought you'd want it? Lauren unrolls it, eyes widening slightly. It's a blueprint. Her blueprint. The first building she ever designed, drawn with shaky hands, and an old pencil when she was just a kid. She exhales, tracing the lines with her fingers. I thought this was lost. Lucas shifts awkwardly. He kept it. Lauren nods, something tightening in her chest. After everything, she realizes, not all ties to her family have to be severed. Some, like this, are worth holding on to. Lucas glances at her. So, where are you going? Away, she says simply. Somewhere I can start over. Lucas hesitates, then nods. Good. That's all they say. No apologies, no forced reconciliations. Just a quiet acknowledgement of something neither of them can quite define. Lucas turns toward the door. Take care, Lauren. She watches as he leaves, wondering if this is the last time she'll see him. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But whatever happens, she knows one thing. They are finally free to be their own people. The drive to Catherine Dawson's house is silent. Lauren doesn't expect much, but she needs closure. Her mother opens the door, expression unreadable. You're leaving, Catherine states. Lauren nods. I am. A long pause. Then Catherine exhales, arms crossing. So this is it? You destroy everything and just walk away? Lauren meets her gaze without flinching. I didn't destroy anything. He did, Catherine doesn't answer, her lips pressing into a thin line. Lauren exhales slowly. She could argue. She could try to force her mother to see the truth. But she knows better now. People see what they choose to see. I hope one day you see things clearly, Lauren says instead. Then she turns away, for good. The highway stretches out before her, Savannah fading into the distance in her rearview mirror. The past is behind her now. A future she chooses is ahead. Her phone buzzes in the passenger seat. She picks it up, seeing Jess Harper's name flash across the screen. She presses accept. Jess, let's talk about a new project. A pause, then Jess chuckles. What kind of project? Lauren smiles to herself, feeling the wind whip through her hair as she rolls down the window. I want to build something real. Not for her father, not for her family name, for herself. For the first time in her life, Lauren Dawson is the architect of her own future. Life doesn't give you clarity, it makes you fight for it. Sometimes the people who should love you the most are the ones who try to control you. But here's the truth. You are not defined by your past. You are not bound by anyone else's expectations. Strength isn't about winning battles, it's about choosing yourself, even when the world tells you not to. If you've ever felt lost, trapped, or underestimated, know this. You are more than what they tried to make you. If this resonates with you, subscribe and join me on this journey of reclaiming our own stories.